There's a YouTuber who's leading the way. Yeah. He's got a passion for all things nerdy. Dungeons and Dragons, his world's not blurry. From comics to movies, he's got it all. He's an Outpost nerd living in a geeky world with his lightsaber shining. He's a Star Wars swerve through galaxies and adventures. He'll take you there, take you there. He's an Outpost nerd, no one can compare. Nerd power. Yeah, he's the king of nerds, catching that flare.
Welcome all my nerd geeks and dweebs to another transmission from the Outpost Nerd. I am the nerd of the Outpost. I hope everyone's having a great Saturday night. And tonight with me is special guest KaiserPineapple. What's up, Kaiser?
Hey, buddy. It's good to see you. It's been a while since we streamed, and I am so glad to be back.
I know. It's like, but these last few weeks, school got out this week, so it's been crazy.
Oh man, dude, I hear you. I just got back from Dollywood just last weekend, and then had to go to work this week, and then all the other crazy stuff that happened this week happened, and it's just like, okay, everybody, time out.
Jacob Peets, what's up?
What's up, Jacob?
Bad Duck, welcome, newcomer. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Bad Duck?
Yeah, I heard Dollywood was a fun weekend.
Oh, dude, it was a blast. It was absolutely amazing. Could not have asked for a better time with such an awesome group of people. It felt like it just felt awesome to be there with everybody, and
that's
there was such a friendship and good camaraderie. I really can't express enough. Yeah, and I think, as far as I know, we are doing this again in 2025, so
that's cool.
Mark your calendars.
Maybe I can get some money saved up and go. That'd be awesome. I remember,
dude, you'll love it.
I went to Dollywood my freshman year of high school. It was my first high school band trip. We went to Gatlinburg, and we did Pigeon Forge, Dixie Stampede, Dollywood. Yeah. I remember we're doing Dixie Stampede, and it was us and another local high school band up there at the same time, and we rented these amazing cabins, 4-story cabins on the side.
Oh yeah, they have such really good rental places up there.
Yeah, and they had pool tables. They had 3 jacuzzis in these rentals that we all rented. That our band director, John, what's up? Thanks for being here.
Hey, John, what's going on?
It was one of my favorite band trips I ever went on, and we were doing the Dixie Stampede thing, and our band director, the two band directors, our band director and the other school's band director, comes out on into the arena and they do these toilet seat horseshoe games, and all us kids are just we're just sitting there with our hands and our palms in our hand, face palming. And just oh God, we're not with him,
right?
But one thing I'll never forget: we go up the gondolas in Pigeon Forge. I don't know if you.
I didn't get a chance to go on those, but I saw the ad for them, and I was like, "Yes, please."
Well, they take you up from the strip up to this ice rink, and a friend of mine. Cool. A bunch of us kids from Florida trying to ice skate, or a bunch of deer trying to walk for the first time, just falling on our asses. And a buddy of mine, he was about maybe 10, 15 feet in front of me and my friends, and he just falls face plants, and he comes up and just a red puddle starts coming out. He had busted his chin open, and our band director had to call a cab because our bus driver couldn't take the bus to the hospital for some reason. For one of their policies, they can't drive to the hospitals. We're like, what?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Suzanne, welcome. Hey, girl.
What's up, Suzanne?
But I had some great band trips. My sophomore year was to DC, and we got to go to the Smithsonian's. And the funniest thing, the thing I'll never forget, in the American History Smithsonian, to get into the men's room, you go down this long hall and then take a left. Well, right there, they have in this 3-inch thick glass case the Fonz's jacket.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
We saw Archie Bunker's chair, saw the Ruby Slippers. It was just saw the Hope Diamond, and one of my friends got too close to the display case and set the alarms off. So we all got like rushed out, and I remember we were driving into the mall, and I see these guys in suits, and me being stupid, I'm like, "Oh, look, politicians!" And one of our band parents is like, "How do you know they're politicians?" I'm like, "Well, look where we're at, and they're in suits. Come on." But
right?
so much so when we were there, like the reflection pond was drained for repairs, so we didn't get to see that. The Washington Monument was closed for repairs, but it was one I want to go back so much and actually see more. We went to Arlington National Cemetery.
But that was cool.
Oh, that was so surreal. Our band director looked at us, got kids, and said, "Guys, if you screw around while we're in here, I will snatch you up, and you will not like what happens. You will be sent home if you mess around."
You screw around in here, you're gonna have a bad time.
Oh, no, that's grandma's prerogative. That's grandma's. That's your perk for being a grandma, getting your grandkids to do stuff.
Yep.
My mama used to say that's why I had kids so I could get chores done. But tonight, 90s sci-fi. You probably agree, was something special. It was right before it became mainstream. I'd say in the early 2000s with like the X-Men movies and Marvel, the beginning Marvel movies, it really became mainstream. But 90s, it was still kind of, I'm a nerd.
Really kind of niche, yeah.
So, and there were a lot of hit and misses, like one season wonders, I call them. So I figured we'd talk about some of our favorites. I shared a video I did a video a few months ago that I shared some of mine, but there's so many more than just the five I talked about.
There's so many. So I'm gonna definitely go off a little bit.
You're fine.
Out there, because I mean it's just my preferred genres and everything. But yeah, I did go ahead and bring along my visuals. So I mean, I did, of course. I mean, bring a few of my entries from off the shelf over there. Sure. But yeah, so all right, you want to go ahead and kick us off, or what do you got?
Have you ever heard of Lex, the show Lex?
Heard of it? Have not seen it.
It was so bizarre. It's basically the universe is in, like, there's a light dimension and a dark dimension. The light dimension is where the story takes place. It is a universe ran basically by bugs, but it's done secretly. And this guy, he's Rex. What's up?
What's up, T-Rex?
There's another survivor from Dollywood right there.
Yep, T-Rex actually, and I rented the same place. So that's cool.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, it must have been surreal seeing everyone in person.
Oh my God, so much.
but
yeah.
It follows like there's a religious, like, totalitarian government that is secretly being run by bugs, but everyone thinks, oh, we defeated the bugs in this war thousands of years ago. And this low-level security guard gets the key to the universe's most powerful weapon. And he runs off. It is so bizarre and gory in some places. Let me bring it up. Let me bring up a picture. Here's the actual ship. And you can see you'll see the bug influence on it. Oh, wrong button. Let's see. There you go. Here's the Lex. The Lex is the name of the ship.
Oh, okay.
And what it does is it eats planets to power itself. It's biomechanical. And this show is so hard to explain to like someone who's never seen it because it's so bizarre. it's like sex plays a theme in it because you have the key and it releases. It's an allegory for that kind of thing.
Aha, I see.
But they're like the final season. Actually, they come to Earth and they deal with that, and the series ends with Lex eating Earth.
Oh wow!
It's funny. It's bizarre. It's got very. It's not shy about the sex, the gore, and the religious commentary on it. But I used to watch it on Sci-Fi back in the 90s when it's like, why is this 10-year-old kid watching this? It's like, shut up, don't tell my mom. But
like,
yeah, that's my first one. What do you got?
So I'm gonna go reaching into the old stack over here, and I'm gonna pull out some of my favorites from some of these are original releases from whenever I was growing up, but also some of them are ones that I know came out whenever I was younger and I collected over the years. So for those who don't know, I mean, anime really started making its way into the US in the 80s. And then it was the 90s where it just boomed out of control and went nuts. It still didn't really hit mainstream until about the 2000s, but it was already here. So
I would say, with the Toonami block on Cartoon Network.
Block, yeah.
That's what I remember being in middle school, and I was in band, so I didn't get home till 5. I'd call my buddy, hey, can your mom tape Toonami today?
Yep. So, in fact, actually, one of those in question happens to be from the Toonami block. I've got none other than Outlaw Star.
That is one of my absolute favorite animes of all time.
Oh yes, and I have to recommend the new Blu-ray release. They restored the animation and everything. It looks amazing.
In my opinion, the idea of grappler ships with arms that could sword fight in space or shoot like huge giant machine guns, to me, it's one of the coolest ideas and unique ideas for space battles I've ever seen.
Yes, and coupling that with the Old West vibe, kind of this very Western outlaws versus the government versus the pirates.
Yeah, you had the three factions.
The three powers in space. Yeah. And then, of course, on top of all that, you get to add the additional really cool basting of this layer of magic within the universe and the idea of mysticism and the paranormal kind of being subverted into the universe. The caster gun. Yes, I have to mention the caster
gun is my favorite anime weapon of all time. So I have been trying to figure out for like the past year and a half how to incorporate that into a D&D setting.
I did it years ago. I did it back in like 2008, 2009. I did it. And I actually used the Artificer subclass. I'll talk to you about that whole thing like another time, but like I did manage to do that because that's freaking awesome. But yeah, the very short explanation of the caster gun is that basically with the magic like being prominent in the universe, a bunch of these wizards got together and actually started putting spells into bullets. And they made a gun that could shoot those for people who couldn't use magic. Yeah. But then magic died out, basically, except for the pirates. The pirates can still use it, and some few users in the universe can still use it, but mostly magic has kind of died out in the universe. So casters are extremely rare.
And they take a lot out of the shooter.
Yes, they have. It's not just a you pull the trigger and kaboom, it does the thing. Every time you fire one, there's a give and take.
You basically zap your life force a little bit. I remember like Gene, the main character, he would use his regular gun, but then he'd break out for like the big fights. It was this like turbine looking gun. It's so cool looking. And I remember a lot of the episodes were him searching for new bullets because they were so
searching
rare.
for the new caster shells, just any that he could get his hands on.
Oh yeah, to me, that was one of my favorite animes growing up. Me and my friends, when we were little, we would
such a unique design too.
Yes, we would make Lego grappler ships and just have. But God, that to me it's one of those gems that I would love to see more of it.
If done right. I think it would be really cool to see more of. But the one of the other things that I really love about a lot of the anime from the 90s especially is that you would get a series.
Yeah.
And that series would be its own self-contained story. So if they didn't get a season 2, you're not left with a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It's okay, we're leaving the door open for more stuff later, but this is a whole self-contained story. You're not going to be sitting there without, as I kind of call it, the conclusion blue balls.
Yeah.
You're going to actually get, all the way to the end of it there. They still will set up things occasionally for like other seasons and kind of tease things, but that was the great thing.
See, the thing 90s anime knew when to end.
Yes.
Not 20, 25 years of One Piece and Dragon Balls. It's like, okay, how many times can we watch Goku get strong enough to beat this next bad guy? I mean,
the Dragon Ball Z formula of Goku fights bad guy, he gets his ass kicked, then he goes out, trains a bunch, and then fights the other guy again, and then he wins.
Yeah.
And it's just that, it's a formula. It's just like the organ grinder of okay, it's a good series. Don't get me wrong. I love Dragon Ball Z.
Loved it.
Whatnot. But it's very formulaic. I love the fact of the ideas of you have a story, and that is something I feel like a lot of Hollywood these days they completely don't get this in their head. This is what happened. This was the whole reason why the Star Wars sequel trilogy sucked so bad.
Other than the fact they were blatant rip-off
with
the original.
No idea what they were going to do.
No, they had
no plan.
They needed one director for the entire, or at least like a showrunner almost, not just basically director, someone in charge who knew the story. I will say this to the data: that is not Luke Skywalker. That is not my Luke Skywalker. That is a bitter old man. All 3 movies, if you look at them and compare them to the original, they are blatant ripoffs.
Yeah. We're not. I do not count Jake Soywoker as the same as Luke Skywalker. They are not the same person, and even Mark Hamill says so. So the one thing Mark Hamill has said that's actually correct. But
yes, I was about to say Mark Hamill is another road of batshit crazy that we're not going to go down. But I think nowadays, a lot of these studios, they're wanting to hire young people to think, we need to bring in fresh ideas. Well, if you're going to bring in fresh ideas, know how to write a story first. And that's what they don't need to do. They don't know how to do.
Yeah, you need people who can write a story, and that story has to have a beginning and it has to have an end. And if you have the 2 of those, you can fill in the gap pretty easily. That is a story writing 101. Start with the beginning and then end with the ending, or sometimes even come up with the ending and then come up with the beginning. But then after you got those 2 bookends, everything else in between is where you can start to do stuff.
And I heard George R.R. Martin, he said once that fat ass needs to finish his books first, but stop talking.
Yeah, 4,500 days of not finishing The Winds of Winter, but okay.
He said, basically, don't force your characters to go somewhere. Let them go. Let them go. And that's like Akira Toriyama. He wrote Gohan to replace Goku.
Yeah.
But he said when writing this character, when developing the character, he realized Gohan is not the kind of person, and we've seen him grow. We've seen that in Super. He's not the person who dropped everything to go fight and train like Goku.
Right.
And is it just me, or has Goku gotten stupider in Super? He's dumber than he was.
Yeah, he has gotten markedly dumber as the series has progressed. I mean, I could still like somewhat see Goku as a semi-functioning adult in the original, like the first season of Dragon Ball Z and whatnot. But like, as he has gone on through DBZ and GT and Super, he's just gotten progressively dumber.
Yeah.
And now he's just it's basically he's just like I'm gonna go punch the bad guy now, and it's like
he's
where's
like
the character?
He's like a special needs child with the powers of Superman.
Yeah, I would say he is the poster child for and don't take this the wrong way, but the poster child for like autistic gym bros.
I almost said that, but I'm thinking, because I've worked with autistic kids, and some of them, in some regards, are super smart on some things, and they're just totally deficient in others, and that's where I came in to try to help them. I had one child who was super smart in math, was doing high school math, and he was a 6th grader. But like with Goku, it's like I fail to see how like not just like the martial arts part of the Eternal Hermit way, but part of that was Master Roshi teaching them like math, reading, and why did that not stick?
Right.
Like one of my favorite moments in Dragon Ball Z is during the week of training during the Cell Saga. You know, him and Gohan are relaxing at home in their Super Saiyan forms, and Gohan's like, "Yeah, let's go train." And Goku finally says it. "No, I think you should study now." And everyone just falls over like, "What?"
Yeah.
Because you were thinking, okay, he finally is understanding Chi-Chi's point of view. Now, I don't like Chi-Chi. I would never marry a woman like Chi-Chi or Bulma. The abrasive.
They're very interesting characters, but it's one of those that's like, do not want.
I mean, and like, I was just rewatching some Dragon Ball Super. There's an episode where Mr. Satan and Gohan are playing kind of rough with Pan, but she's a Saiyan, so it's normal. They're like throwing her up, like doing these martial arts moves. Chi-Chi freaks the fuck out and locks herself and Videl in another room, and they're freaking out. And she's like, "Oh, I want Videl to do this." Like, bitch, you're the grandmother. Shut up. And she finally says, "Well, Videl, what do you want?" Videl says, "Well, I did martial arts. I enjoyed it. I want her to find something she enjoys, not force her to do something like Chi-Chi did."
Right.
Chi-Chi was a martial artist too. She's the son of one of the most powerful men in the world, the strong Ox King. He gets his ass kicked all the time in Dragon Ball Z. But you got to realize he was on par with Grandpa Gohan at one time.
Yep.
And like I remember, I was watching the Dead Zone, Dragon Ball Z, the Dead Zone the other day, and when the
classic,
when they come and kidnap, they try to grab Gohan's Dragon Ball. She goes into this martial arts stand, and if it wasn't for the guy sneaking up behind her, she probably would have kicked some ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't understand. Like, there are two aspects of anime I don't understand: the over-abrasive wife and the pervy old man.
And I mean, I think it's kind of a cultural thing, especially with culturally, they're very different where we are, because I mean, over there, a lot of the schooling and whatnot is basically trying to drill information into your head through repetition and memorization and whatnot. Whereas over here, there's less of a focus on that. And I think there was a time where we used to focus more on life skills.
Yes.
And then actual like book education. And I think that's really kind of where you see the difference between the Eastern and Western values kind of like skyrocket in context to Dragon Ball Z. And the pervy old man has always just kind of been a trope through pretty much most cultures and histories.
Mm.
But they actually play it to a comedic degree with like, especially like Dragon Ball,
Yeah,
Master Roshi. They play it to a comedic degree, and it's actually funny. And there's in a lot of ways it actually serves the story, which I'm fine as long as what is going on serves the greater story at large.
Yeah, and with Master Roshi in general, I think sometimes the comedic aspects overshadow the fact that before Goku, he was the most powerful human in the world, and we've seen that twice in Super. His fighting during the Frieza invasion and during the Tournament of Power, where he shows up. He shows up and kicks ass. I think
that's a really great thing to think about there, is because we've gotten so used to Master Roshi just being, this, kind of like guy who just hangs out in the background, but he's just, doing the pervy old man thing. And then he sneaks up and suddenly, like, shit hits the fan, and suddenly he's like, oh, and he just
he took charge. He took charge during the resurrection of F. In the movie, I don't remember in the show specifically, but in the movie, he's telling the other fighters, "Hey, you need to go do this. Go over here, fight here. I'll deal with this group. You deal with that group." And I loved, like, he goes to shoot a Kamehameha, gets knocked down, and he still shoots it off one-handed. It's like, that shows he invented that move. That is his move.
There's a great old saying that I always love, and I'm so glad that Master Roshi still embodies this through his character. And that old saying is, never underestimate, what was it? Old age and treachery will beat youth and exuberance any day of the week. So never underestimate the old man in a profession where men die young. So the fact that Master Roshi's still kicking it even now, and I mean, even with Goku existing and like the Saiyans and whatnot, them being so much more powerful than he is, and he could still hack it.
It's like, I love the turtle. Sorry, we're getting the turtle hermit way. It states, work hard, study well, eat and sleep plenty. Yes. I mean, that's not just a key to, like, his martial arts way. That's a way of life.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like I could talk about, like, anime all day. Our next show.
Oh, trust me, I have plenty.
Have you ever heard of a show called 7 Days?
I don't think I have, actually.
This is a really interesting sci-fi show.
Okay.
It answers, what did the government do with the wreckage from Roswell?
Okay.
And what they did, they were able to develop a time machine that takes you back 7 days. Yeah. So what do they do with it? Something like a natural catastrophe will happen, and they'll send these these chrononauts, they call. There's this guy. He has a photographic memory. He gets sent back to try to stop the catastrophe that he witnessed in this other timeline. And it's so interesting. It shows, like, the psychological effects that he suffers through. He's basically an ex-CIA agent that had a mental break, ends up in the mental ward, and gets recruited by this, like, branch from out of Area 51. It's very heavily, it's got espionage, it's very heavily sci-fi. Like, it's the little gray aliens, but it's so interesting. It really showed, like, okay, what would happen to someone after he keeps witnessing these things, the isolation he would feel from being the only one who remembers this. This was on TNT.
Okay.
A lot of my shows were, like, on TNT or these now defunct channels.
Yeah, these now gone networks.
But I loved it. Like, there's the first episode where was someone tried to gas bomb some. I don't know. I don't want to get like red flagged. Someone tried to gas bomb some government buildings, and his wife and child were nearby and got caught in it. So he ends up going back 7 days. It's just it's a really interesting take on the Roswell conspiracy kind of storylines.
And I can tell you, actually, having studied the whole Roswell thing extensively, it's weird. The how that all happened is weirder than anything else. But yeah, that's a whole topic for another discussion.
Burn Notice, anyway, anyone? Who doesn't know Burn Notice?
Yeah,
my mom used to. It was one of those shows. Every so often, my mom and I will be able to find a show we can sit together and watch, and not argue about like, oh, there's nothing to watch. Bruce Campbell, come on, Ash was on that. I love Bruce Campbell. That's another show I'll talk about. But so, what's your next show?
Okay, my next one is actually it's 3 movies actually. So this one is Megazone 23.
I've never heard of that.
This one is hard to find, but thankfully, a great company by the name of Animigo, they actually got the rights to it, and they have actually done a full 4K restoration of the original movie, which is amazing. But this is like the original ADV release from like the mid 2000s. So what's interesting is that there's 3 movies in the Megazone collection. The first 2 are concurrent, like the one right after the other, and then the third one takes place with a different set of characters long after. But the very, very basic synopsis is that it actually kind of it parallels the Matrix in a lot of ways. But what's interesting is there's some actual points in Megazone that are like borderline like blatantly almost beat for beat, like some things that are in the Matrix. But the Wachowskis, of course, vehemently deny that they ever had this was ever an influence on their
the sisters or brothers.
Look, whatever they are this week, who cares?
Yeah.
Look, sorry, I go by the John Wayne methodology. Is like, just because you chop your pecker off, don't make you a woman. But that's just me. Anyway, whatever y'all's lifestyle choices is, that's between you and y'all. I don't give a shit. Anyway, so Megazone, getting on here. So it kind of picks up in what you would believe is kind of 1988 Japan. Economic boom, everything's great. It's very 80s. And the animation is very much like that 80s hand-drawn anime style.
Yeah.
But then what's interesting is that they keep talking about like all these world events, but these world events never really come to anything. And then you find out that everybody starts asking, like, why is it these world events never really seem to have any kind of effect on things? Well, yeah, come to find out later on, and there's a major twist in the story involving a famous singer, and finding out a very existential crisis question that is the world that we know really real. I don't want to ruin it because I want people to actually go out and see this because it is every bit amazing. And the mecha designs, it actually is a transforming mecha series, except this time motorcycles. But there's an existential threat, like the primary antagonist of the movies is really fascinating, and it's not who you think it is, because there's no way to talk about this series without actually getting into some like spoiler territory. So I apologize in advance. I'm probably just gonna have to go ahead and come out with
my thing is, it's been out long enough, and I haven't seen it. Spoilers are free game.
Okay, so essentially what happens is that there's this singer that's really popular. The singer has been doing these like appearances, and so this guy finds this motorcycle that just seems weird. Like this guy basically gives it to him and says, "Hey, you need to keep this thing safe," and right before he dies.
Okay.
So he tries to figure out what to do with it, but he can't really figure anything out. But then this AI, this singer, like at one point he calls like to some radio station or something, and the AI singer actually gets on the phone and she starts talking to him, and that's whenever he starts to realize that she's actually an AI.
Okay.
She's not a real person, she's an AI. And then they go further through this and they find out that the entire city that they're on, they think they're in Tokyo, but nobody ever comes or goes. Everybody just stays there.
You just reminded me of my next one. I think you might know where you'll see the parallels that when I.
But yeah, so it turns out that
awesome.
that Tokyo is like what they think is Tokyo in 1988 is actually a ship in space in like the 22nd century.
Really?
Yeah. And they've been strung along by their government to believe that they're still on Earth and it's in the 1980s. But what's fascinating about it is that essentially what happened is like in the 80s, like this, they found some like alien technology and some things happened. Basically, Earth became near uninhabitable because of this war with these almost like aliens, but these aliens infect technology.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And so they left on several like ships, like kind of like Battlestar Galactica. They left on a whole bunch of ships that were colony ships, and they've kind of all gone out. Well, it turns out that Megazone 23 is the last ship of humanity left.
Okay,
and
cool. Wow.
It's on its return journey to Earth, and then it encounters the alien force again. Except it's not an alien force. It's kind of a next evolution step in humankind's history. That's what they don't want to know. So yeah, this basically this guy who is just a biker punk suddenly finds himself with the most advanced mech in the entire fleet and finds himself squarely in the crosshairs of the world government that is trying to keep this secret safe. And it goes in directions that you really just would not believe or understand that first. It's very layered and very nuanced. I really love it a lot. And yeah, I still won't spoil the entire ending for you because it is really that damn good. But then, yeah, that's just the setup for primarily the first movie. And then there's the second movie. The second movie is where the resolution happens, and there's a whole lot more with the characters. There was definitely a change in animation houses between 1 and 2. So the second one looks very differently, but they keep to the very stringent aesthetic. And yeah, it is full on like 1980s, like biker punks versus like high-tech military, and it's awesome.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It is worth the watch, 110%. And then the third one is also still very good. I think that the first two are probably the better of them, but the third one's still, because it continues on the story and there is actually a part of it that actually matters in the continuation, it is definitely worth checking out.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, definitely one you got to see. I cannot recommend it enough.
Well, that good. Yeah, that kind of connects. I could see parallels with my next one, and I think this is another one for Toonami that I think a lot of people loved, but the resolution left you asking, "What?" The Big O.
Yes,
this is one of my favorites. One of the themes of it was what makes a person, their experience or their memories. Yeah. Now, a lot of people know this, but it's set in a world where 40 years ago, something happened and everyone lost their memories. and only one city is left in the world, according to the citizens. As far as they know, they're the only ones left. You see a little through the series that's not really true, and basically you have this man. His name's Roger Smith. What's called a negotiator. You call him in if you have a problem, and he negotiates for it. And they never tell you why he has a giant mecha named the Big O. And this mech is one of my favorites. I love his main weapons. He has giant pistons on his forearms that he'll punch, and that piston, when he punches, just drops and it just explodes. The force of it explodes out of his hand, just rips anything apart. It has a lot of aspects of film noir, detective.
Yeah, it has a very interesting aesthetic. I kind of put the design aesthetic alongside kind of like Batman the Animated Series from the 90s.
Well, Roger Smith, people have compared him a lot to the Batman style character.
Right.
And he's got his own butler. Come on. Too.
Yeah, and the similarities are there, let's be completely honest.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that is a very interesting show. I mean, it was unfortunately short.
Yes. It ended on a pretty much of a cliffhanger. And I have my theories of what was going on, but it's been 20 some odd years since this show came out. And no one has said anything. When did it come out? It came out in 99.
Yeah, I was going to say 98, 99.
And
but 1997 to 1999 was a banging 3 years for anime. Oh my god.
And it's like it ends there there are mechs, there are special mechs. They have regular mechs in this, and then they have the bigs, which are pretty much, they have almost a life to them, like their own consciousness.
They're semi-sentient, yeah.
Yeah, like there's an episode where I think one of the enemies tries to drive Big O, and the controls just won't budge, and then Big O like almost absorbs him. Like he's like, it was nuanced. It was so much mystery to it. But at the end, like the Big O's are almost to me generals in this mecha army, for this old mecha army of old. One of them flies into the sky and through the clouds and hits a lighting rig, and these giant stage lights just start falling down onto the city, and you're thinking, what is going on?
Right.
Then it ends. I'm thinking this was the whole city, the whole thing was an experiment in this, kind of like what you were talking about with Megazone. This whole experiment, this encased somewhere, this experiment on memories.
Yep.
Like what would happen if like you took away these memories but left little clues around? The battles were just, they were so good.
Oh yeah, it's hard to really talk about some of these without just saying it was really, really good.
These yeah. Some of you are like, you can't explain. They were like, and the music, it had that old jazzy feel that I loved, and that fit in with the almost like Dick Tracy detective era kind of aesthetic to the setting.
It was that, like you said, very film noir, that kind of that semi 1940s aesthetic. It's almost like you can't really pin down a time frame because everything seems to have like kind of a modern vibe to it, but also be a little bit Art Deco in a way, kind of like Batman the Animated Series. You can't really pin down a time period, but there's distinctive Art Deco style through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons I still love Batman the Animated Series so much, even
That,
now.
yeah, I can go back. To me, Kevin Conroy
Is
is
Batman.
Batman. His I love his deliverance of "I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." That I could watch that scene and still get goosebumps. Funny story about Kevin Conroy. He was from New York, and when 9/11 happened, he wanted to volunteer. During the cleanup, and they said, "Well, we have enough construction workers. Do you have any restaurant experience?" He's like, "Of course I do. I'm an actor. Come on."
Yeah.
So he was at Ground Zero kitchens working the night shift, cooking dinner for all these first responders, and it was
awesome.
Noticeably, understandably, a very solemn. These guys are coming in with dust. There's still smoke coming out the pit. It's that early on. And he was talking. He and the other guy in the kitchen started talking. And the guy's like, "I'm a lawyer in my day job. What do you do?" He's like, "Well, I'm an actor." And the guy's like, "You're that Kevin Conroy. You're Batman."
Yep.
And he runs out to the cafeteria, and he's like, "Hey guys, guess who's been cooking your dinner for the past few weeks? It's Batman." And you hear typical New York guys like, "Bullshit. Make him prove it." And from the kitchen, he does the line, "I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." Dead silence. And you hear the guys like, "Holy shit. It is Batman." And they started cheering. And the guy looked at Kevin and said, "What does it feel like to be Santa?" And Kevin said he went back to Andrea Romano, who did all the animated DC's very famous voice director. I would love to meet her or talk to her one day. She had to retire. She was going blind, and she had to retire a few years ago. But it reminded me, like, I've done theater, and I've done stuff on the stage, both directing and acting. And I remember I was in off one summer. Got called for jury duty one summer, and at the few weeks before, my college theater group, we had done a night of 10-minute plays. Each like 4 or 5 of us we chose a short little 10-minute skit. We went off, produced it, directed it, came back, did a night of showcases. And I did one called The Secret Origins of Mojo Man. It was a superhero themed one where this guy, he wants to ask the head cheerleader to prom, but he's scared, so his buddy makes him think he has like a superpowered mojo, if you get my meaning. So
gotcha.
And I remember watching in the rafters, people were just rolling over laughing about it. So I said I got called for jury duty, and jury pool room is full. Only chair left is right beside me. I'm sitting there reading a book. Cute girl sits beside me, and we get to talk. She says, "Oh, what do you do?" I was like, "Well, I'm a full-time theater student out at the college." "Oh, I love going out to the theater. I was just out there from the night of 10-minute plays a few months ago." My ears perked up a little bit. I said, "Oh, really? Which one was your favorite?" She said, "I love that superhero one. It was so funny." And I started laughing. She's like, "What?" I said, "I directed that one." And she's like, "Oh, you did? It was so good." It let me know, and I was able to go back to my classmates and my professors, kind of like what Kevin experienced. You don't realize on stage what the impact you're having on the community.
Exactly.
And it was just so. I mean, his voice is the one I hear when I read Batman comics.
Oh, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's Kevin freaking Conroy. I mean, look, the other guys, I mean, that did the live action ones, I mean, sure, they get by, but how many of those Batmans can you identify just by the voice? Only one.
He actually played Bruce Wayne live action one time. One time. He was in front of a camera during Supergirl Crisis on Infinite Earth. They cross over, her and Batgirl cross over to this really dark and gritty universe where it was the Batman versus Superman kind of Dark Knight
Right.
Returns kind of universe. Batman's killed Superman, and he's in this. It's Kevin Conroy in this exoskeleton, and it was the only time he'd ever played Batman, Bruce Wayne, I should say, on screen.
Yep.
And it breaks my heart. We'll never hear him as old Bruce Wayne, see him as old Bruce Wayne in a Batman Beyond movie.
Oh man, I know.
Because I loved Batman Beyond too. That's another great series.
Yeah, I have to admit, I actually did like that one. Whenever for first out, I wasn't really too big on it. I thought the animation was a little bit different because I mean they tried to simplify it a little bit. I mean that was a production thing, but probably a couple of years ago, they dropped the whole thing and the animated movie Return of the Joker on HBO Max, and I'm like, oh, what the heck, man? I'm gonna go ahead and rewatch that, and I was surprised at how much it held up. And of course, yeah, you have Kevin Conroy as old Bruce Wayne, but then you have the new guy actually,
Will Friedle from Boy Meets World as Terry McGinnis. Yeah,
as Terry McGinnis, and it's like they just fit.
Yeah. And then you had I think either Tara Strong or the original Harley Quinn come back as Harley because she actually survived, which like when she came with like "Shut up, Grandma Harley," I'm like, holy crap, that's cool.
But, I remember that one. Yeah.
But the way that they did it, yes, the Joker died, but he kind of cheated death a little bit.
And I love kind of interesting how they did that.
I love the exchange between him and Terry McGinnis during the fight. He's like, he's psychoanalyzing the Joker of all people. And
yeah, Batman's greatest nemesis, and
go ahead. Sorry.
He psychoanalyzes the Joker during the fight and starts picking the Joker's entire shtick apart. It was just chef's kiss.
Oh yeah, I loved it. He says something along those lines. I said, I bet the reason why you always came back to Batman because you never got a laugh out of him.
Yep.
And it's like it's so true because I love it because there's also an episode where someone's trying. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've watched all the series. Someone like tries to mind control Bruce. But he keeps calling him Bruce. And Terry asked him at the end, "How did you know it was fake?" He's like, he kept calling me Bruce, and that in my head, that's not what I call myself.
Yep.
And he's like, Terry's like, oh, but then he leans into Bruce. He's like, but that's my name now. I was like, oh, so cool. He I don't know if Will Friedle, but they're doing what was it? With the Anti-Monitor, the storyline with the Anti-Monitor and all that. I can't remember
I can't remember it either.
Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think that's what it's called.
So I know what you're talking about. I can't remember it.
Yeah, they're doing a 3-part animated movie, and they had Jensen Ackles from Supernatural came in and played Batman like he's been doing since I think he's going to be the new Batman voice since Kevin passed away, which to me still it's a great choice.
Yeah, but Jensen Ackles is great.
Yeah, I loved him. I love watching the bloopers from Supernatural. They're like
the bloopers are great. I have to admit, I actually sat there today. I was going to I had to go to the hardware store for some stuff. And I flipped on my phone and I just hit like a random like classic rock playlist. First song that pops up was Heat of the Moment, and I'm just like,
oh, Carry On My Wayward Son. Oh, come on.
That one was on there too, but yeah. It was the Heat of the Moment, like where they had the episode where they got stuck in the time loop. That one to me just brilliant. The Groundhog Day, yeah.
I remember I was watching an interview for The Boys, and he was talking about, it's like, yeah, the most like line or acting direction I get is like, don't be Dean.
Right.
He's like, yeah, you played a character for what, 15, 12, 13, 14, 15 years.
Oh yeah, a long time.
But I think but there's a scene where he's in his universe, it's Batman. It's all no Robin, no Batgirl, and he meets other universe versions of these characters, and he thinks it's so stupid that he said, "Your Batman is irresponsible. I would never recruit children." And it becomes this whole battle. They actually have Batman Beyond, and Will Friedle comes in and does a couple of lines. Grandma's house,
Hey,
what's
Grandma.
up? I mean, these, like when I read Batman Beyond, it's Will Friedle's voice. It's these characters from these animated shows that I grew up watching. And for a lot of people, they were their first foray. The 90s, the comics industry was dying in the 90s, but the animation departments in like Marvel and DC were just lit.
Yep.
One of my next show is, this was a show so far ahead of its time. Have you ever heard of The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.?
Yes, I have.
Loved this show. I can watch it over and over again. It is many, and Bruce Campbell in his prime.
Bruce Campbell, hello.
This was not long after Evil Dead. This was, I think, the mid 90s.
Yeah, he did Army of Darkness in 93, so yeah.
And I think this was like late 90s. 94. So
right after Army of Darkness.
Yeah, 93 and 94. It's got a great cast. His dad is played by R. Lee Emery. Come on, Gunny. It's got Billy Drago, played one of the best villains in John Bly, was one of the best villains. It had Sean Astin as the mad scientist, Gomez Adams.
Yeah.
I loved this. It was a mix of Old West, steampunk, and science fiction. And it's a lot of people looking back at this says it was, if it came out today or maybe 10, 15 years ago, it would have been a hit. It would have been so much bigger than it was.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And like the story is, you have these magical orbs that no one knows where they come from, but they have so much power. Like in the pilot episode, they find this in a mine, and these Chinese indentured workers use this orb to gain the power to break their chains, basically rip off their shackles. But the power, it's almost like a divine aspect to this power. It turns out these orbs are from like the year 10,000.
Okay.
And there's a train of thought in physics and in sci-fi called the Akashic field, which is the field that contains all knowledge of creation. And these orbs are actually antennas that tap into that power.
Oh.
And John Bly, Billy Drago's character, John Bly, is actually, he's from like the year 3000. He's like from the future. So to him, he's surrounded, in his mind, he's surrounded by ghosts. Like he doesn't care about killing because he's surrounded by people from his point of view that are already long dead.
Right.
And it's got a lot of like bounty hunting. Briscoe County Jr. is a bounty hunter, and it's got that kind of Western aspect to it. It is so good. So it's so far ahead of its time. Like in the first episode, he rides a rocket down a train track to catch the train he's trying to chasing, and he rides it like it's a horse. And it's just the main theme is the future, because Briscoe is he's always talking about the coming thing. He knows it's set in like 1894, around the 1890s, and he knows, he has this feeling something big is about to change. And we see that, from history, we can see what he will eventually experience. But he's always talking about the coming thing. So to me, it was way ahead of its time. One of those, it was in the vein of like young Indiana Jones. It's set.
Okay,
It came out in the same time. Show me your war face. Yeah, Gunny was such a good actor. He was.
Oh yeah. So much more than just what his public persona was. And
he was
look,
funny.
the guy was amazing. He was hilarious.
He done like Saving Silverman. He played in that. He did so many voices. What was that? Peter Jackson, Michael J. Fox ghost movie. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh crap! I know the one you're talking about, but I cannot remember the name of it.
Let me look it up. He played a character in that, and it was just he had that voice and he had that demeanor that you knew it was him, even by just like you didn't have to see his face. What was it called? Okay, it's not. Of course, it's not going to be here. That's. I wish Michael J. Fox could act again. He was so good.
Oh yeah, unfortunately Parkinson's, and yeah,
the Frighteners.
Okay, Frighteners. Okay.
Yes. Kept wanting to say Tommyknockers, but no, that's a Stephen King movie or book / miniseries. I hate Stephen King. God.
Yeah, a little overrated in my opinion, but yeah.
But the Frighteners was one of my Peter Jackson's first like big movies that in America that really, if it wasn't for Frighteners, I doubt he would have been able to do the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But
all right.
So what's your next one?
Since you went ahead and did 2, I've got 2, and
I'm sorry.
Guess what? No, you're good, man. I look, do you see this face? I'm happy to be here. Anyway, so now we get to the rabbit hole to
I've been looking forward to this one since you mentioned it earlier today.
Okay, I have 2 of them.
Okay.
So first off, we'll go down probably what is, I would say, the easier of the 2. Mm-hmm. Only because there's just the story is a little more self-contained. I mean, this is one of those where how it got made is almost as if not more interesting than the actual series itself. Mm-hmm. I still say that the series and the universe are very interesting and they're worth your watch. But just to know the backstory of some of this is kind of like, what? So, yeah, I've got a expansive little bit here. So, let me just go ahead and pull this out. So this is actually the original U.S. release of Bubblegum Crisis. This is the first time it was ever released in the United States, and I do also have the restored Blu-ray edition.
I follow YouTube channels that they'll do these, like one of them does Saturday morning block cartoons that he'll show every Saturday morning, but then he'll do throughout the week like 2-3 hour blocks of shows. And I think last night he did Bubblegum Crisis, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. But,
okay. So the thing is that there's more than one Bubblegum Crisis. You've got the original series from the 80s, and then they actually continued it on with Bubblegum Crash later on. And then
that might have been the one he showed.
There was a spin-off of that one called AD Police, which has some of the characters returning. And then later on in the 90s, the one that I'm going to really get to is my personal favorite of all of these, which is where they took all the ideas from the earlier editions, because there were a lot of production issues behind the scenes, and they actually they took all the original ideas, they took the things that worked and the things that didn't, they kind of separated the wheat from the chaff, and they made a self-contained series that is actually really pretty long, but it's really good, and that is Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040.
Okay, that's interesting.
This is the perfect collection. This was released in like 1998, I think. This right here is probably like one of the crown jewels of my anime collection. And I had to fight somebody for it. Funny story is my parents wanted to go Black Friday shopping one day, and
you'll never see me out in that.
It was the only time I ever did. They had some deals that they wanted to get or something like that, so we went to Best Buy. We lined up at like 4 in the morning to like go do this. I was like 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to the Best Buy, we lined up, we ran in and all that kind of stuff, and everybody else went and grabbed what we all had like an assigned like what we were supposed to grab. By the time I got to where I needed to get to, everything I needed to get was gone. So I just went and hung out in the DVD collection and I saw this. And I'm like, oh, hey, that's only $40. Let me go ahead and snap that up. And it looks like a big series. It's like almost, what is it? It's like, I think it's almost 40 episodes or something like that. It's really long, but It's good. And I picked it up and I literally was standing there and some guy ran up, slapped it out of my hands, knocked it to the floor, broke it open, and then grabbed it up and ran away. And I said, what the hell, dude? And so I picked up this copy, which was right behind it.
He got the old busted one that he broke.
Yeah, he did that to himself. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I get this one that's in perfectly mint condition. And I just went and paid for it. So this is actually the very one from that day, which is awesome.
Well, that's cool.
I've held on to it all this time. And so the story behind Bubblegum Crisis is pretty interesting. Let me actually go back to the 1980s version.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 80s version should be recognized because the animation was amazing for the time period, and it came out during the economic boom in Japan in like the mid 80s. Mm-hmm. There was a huge economic boom, which is where we were able to get all these OVAs and stuff like that made, where they had bigger budgets and they were able to do more and make the animation look really good, was during this time period. So this was one of the series to come out of the anime boom of the 80s and in the big economic times. So Toshimichi Suzuki was the creator of this. He formed a company called Artmech, and their idea was they were going to be a very privately centric animation studio. They were going to do all of their own stuff in-house. They were going to be like able to basically do their own thing and do it in a way that they can't with any other like normal like studio backing or something like that, kind of like the Hollywood system. Mm-hmm. They were very much on the independent track. They were going to go do things independently. And so Toshimichi Suzuki he created the company Artmech. They partnered with another company called Yomex, and they were able to actually start production on this. And there were some absolute powerhouse names that were attached to, this art to Artmech at the time. So of course, Toshimichi Suzuki, Junji Fujita, who later went on to do a lot of like other like stuff like classic sci-fi that we probably know. Kenichi Sonoda, who went on to actually be the creator and lead character designer for Cowboy Bebop.
Oh.
And yeah.
That's a great Western style anime.
Fantastic. Yeah. And actually, without Bubblegum Crisis, that series wouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. FYI.
You mean without Bubblegum Crisis, we would have to suffer that live action piece of trash?
Okay.
Sorry, I had to joke. That was a joke. Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm laughing. I thought it was funny, but we don't talk about that. That doesn't exist.
Yes, yeah. I got through half the first episode. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I didn't even make it through the entire first episode either. But okay, you see this? This is good. This is fine. You do not need to make a live action version. No. This is perfectly serviceable and okay. And now it's restored, so you actually get in great picture quality and sound. Anyway,
I will say this about live action anime adaptations: One Piece was great.
One Piece did it right.
That's the only time. That's the only one I can like. I've seen live action Full Metal Alchemist that were just Oh god.
They actually redid Yu Yu Hakusho recently in live action.
I haven't been able to catch it.
I've seen the first episode and a half, and I actually thought they did a pretty good job.
Because
I went back and watched the anime, the
Yeah.
original series, and then came back and watched the that. And I have to admit, they did pretty good.
That's
They
another
definitely
one
had
we
to
should
do a
talk
lot
about.
of condension,
Yeah.
but
Well, yeah, they did that with One Piece as well, because it's not until like
yeah,
a couple hundred episodes in when you finally see Garp for the first time.
right.
But
Anyway,
Yu
sorry, I got
Yu
off track here.
Hakusho is one of
So,
another amazing anime.
yes, Yu Yu
I loved
Hakusho
it.
is
Sorry.
great. I love that one. But yeah, so they made this series. Originally, they were slated for 13 episodes. They got 8 done. But the great thing is that each of the 8 episodes is basically 45 to 50 plus minutes.
So it's basically 2 episodes in one. Okay. That's
Yeah,
cool.
so each and of course each episode is its own self-contained story. So it's almost like you get 8 movies instead of
cool.
like,
It's almost like an anthology series.
Yes. So that was how they did the original Bubblegum Crisis, and they did some really cool stuff with it. And like I said, the animation is fantastic. They also had the spin-off series AD Police that came from there. They spun off the character of Leon, who is basically a member of this what's called the AD Police. They in the Bubblegum Crisis universe, it's basically the close to the mid 21st century. There's this giant mega corporation that has taken over pretty much everything called Genom. And Genom controls pretty much everything. Government, media, everything. They're all almost their own totalitarian regime. And they have this technology that they came up with, and where they claim they came up with it. We'll get into that. But essentially what it is that they created these robotic drones that could do tasks and like kind of take over as almost like the indentured servitude class. So any of these like jobs, like manual labor, customer facing jobs, were taken over by robots called boomers. And they were essentially, put out there as a response to the devastation of Tokyo. There was a massive earthquake, and this quake basically blew every expectation and completely was off the Richter scale. Destroyed Tokyo, caused it to actually fall into basically you have the upper city and the lower city now. And
this is crazy how our minds are thinking alike, because it's an anime, has aspects of the same things you're talking about now in it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, they create the boomers to actually help dig out and rebuild society after the quake. Well, Genom floods the market with boomers, and then there suddenly starts happening these crimes where these robots, these boomers, start going crazy. Like they have like rogue boomer incidents where for something like some cases like a waitress, like somebody will slight the waitress and then she just kind of like gets stuck in a feedback loop and goes crazy over that one thing or something like that. And essentially it's like where you see like the core, like the actual like the processor starts to almost grow outward of itself like a biomechanical or a kind of a biological entity almost. Mm-hmm. It's like they're almost a biomechanical hybrid, but they start growing out of this mechanical form and they start being able to absorb other technology into themselves. So you have the AD Police, which is this group that is basically created strictly to fight boomers and boomer crimes.
Okay, that's cool.
They're basically a paramilitary organization. They have tons of the high-tech guns and equipment, but they're poorly led, poorly organized, and there's a lot of bureaucracy because little do they know that the people that actually bankroll them at the top is Genom. They don't know that though. So they think that they're out there trying to like fix, like solve boomer crimes and help to actually put these people behind bars, but they keep getting stalled in their job because they're being stalled by the company that rules over them. And so you've got the detective Leon in there. He's not the protagonist, but he is one of the main characters in there. Late you'll get to meet. Mm-hmm. And then he has his partner, Daly Wong. The two of them, yeah, so you have Leon McNichols and Daly Wong. And I would love to see a buddy cop series with just these two because they are so funny. Because Leon is just this very straight up, like kind of like macho kind of dude. Like has that very hard-nosed cop kind of very Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon kind of vibe to him. But his partner, on the other hand, Daly, is a flamboyantly gay man, but they have this very funny, like just working relationship, and it's just so funny to watch these two. But they're serious enough that they actually get stuff done, and they actually have a very viable and very important part of the entire series to themselves. But then there's the added layer of there's a group that has suddenly been taking on all these boomer crimes. There's a group out there that has suddenly been making the AD police look like absolute fools. And it's called the Night Sabers. And basically, it's these ladies with these powered suits of armor that just suddenly start showing up. These suits are like years ahead of any technology Genom has. They don't know exactly how they're operated or who's operating them, but they come in, they destroy the boomers whenever they go rogue, and then they just vanish into the night. They're incredibly powerful, but they're stealthy. And nobody really knows what's going on. So what I love about 2040 is 2040 takes all the ideas and condenses it down. So it begins with a country girl by the name of Lena going to the big city of Tokyo, gets her first job, and then she's kind of like on the side, like a big internet nerd, like where she's looking into all these things about the Night Sabers, and everybody kind of laughs at her like those don't exist. They're not real.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's a big disinformation campaign coming from the AD police to prove that the Night Sabers don't exist, but she ends up actually getting involved in a boomer, like related, like a boomer incident, and she encounters the Night Sabers, and actually she picks up on a subtle detail that one of them does and figures out their identity without them ever taking off their helmet. And so she goes to find her and tries to get herself recruited, and actually does succeed in getting
this gives me like Men in Black International vibes.
It really does, kind of.
Yeah.
And she gets recruited into the Night Sabers, and it turns out that you have Lena, who is the one who just gets recruited. She's an athlete, basically, had left the country life to pursue her life in the city. And then she meets the other Night Sabers. You have Pris, the sort of, the sort of like on ground leader of them. She's a grunge rock, a techno grunge rock singer, who actually, in the original series, her band is called Pris and the Replicants, which is a direct nod to Blade Runner. In the newer series, her band name is Sakura. Doesn't really matter in that regard, but yeah, I had to get the nod in there to Blade Runner, which was a big inspiration on this series. And then there's the tech genius, Nene Romanova. She's, she's half Russian, and she's a big technology nerd, but she's like the hacker, able to do all the technical stuff. And then you have the actual leader of the group, which is Celia Stingray. So Celia, turns out that her father was actually the original creator of the Boomers. like her dad born the technology out of her brain, like used a like a nanobot to map her brain and then use that as the basis for the boomer core. And so it comes to find out that when a boomer goes rogue, it's not just going feral, it's actually breaking the bonds of the like the technological shackles that have been placed on it, and it's actually becoming sentient.
Oh, almost like, you have those in the movie iRobot, those rules, those 3 robotic rules, and then
The
you
three
have
rules of
Sonny who,
robotics.
you have Sonny who's able to disregard those rules. So the boomers are slowly like, from what you're saying, I'm guessing what you're saying, the boomers are slowly kind of learning how to
Breaking out of
break it
that.
out of it.
There's an added layer to it because it as they find out later in the series, there was something hidden in her father's laboratory that not only is controlling and causing all these boomer incidents that are occurring to begin with, but there's something there that's still alive that shouldn't be.
Hmm.
And when it does finally make its way to the surface, it's going to change everything. So
That sounds cool.
again, you need to watch this one.
I've
Bubblegum
heard about it
Crisis
for
Tokyo 2020.
years. I've heard about it for years. Just never got around to watching it. Might need to do that.
Yes, I cannot recommend it enough. It is one of my favorites. But if you also get the chance, the original Bubblegum Crisis series is still also extremely good, which you can actually get the Blu-ray also on Animigo with all the trappings and everything all fully restored. They also carry the Bubblegum Crash Total Collection, which is the continuation that happened after Bubblegum Crisis, and then AD Police, which was the spinoff of that. So let me real quick finish this little bit up on Bubblegum Crisis with some of the background on it, because that's where things get crazy. So, as I mentioned, Toshimichi Suzuki created, Toshimichi Suzuki, I keep getting that wrong, created Artemic. He brought all these people together, and they started making the series around 1987, I think.
Yes.
Was whenever they,
yeah.
The original idea was that they were going to try and actually recreate a series that they had started originally back called Technopolice 21C. And then after he met with Junji Fujita, they kind of started to change plans. They said, hey, I got some ideas. And they kind of combined their ideas into one. And they actually were like, hey, this Bubblegum Crisis idea actually sounds like it'd be pretty cool. And they eventually brought in Kenichi Sonoda. He actually sat down, created the characters, and kind of helped them with story development. And then Masami Obari came in and actually did all the mecha designs. And so they all kind of co-created this series together. And it was a great hit in Japan. And then like I said, they were developing episodes, they were putting them out there as they went. They were originally signed for 13 episodes. And then somewhere around the production of episodes 7 or 8, Toshimichi Suzuki got somehow basically he had worked himself in debt to the Yakuza.
Oh, good God.
And so he had worked himself into debt with the Yakuza, apparently was no longer able to pay off his creditors, and fearing for his life, he disappeared. He just straight up vanished. A lot of people thought that he was bumped off and killed, but he resurfaced in 2020.
Really?
And, yeah, basically he had been since the late 1980s, almost at that point, almost 30 years, he had been in hiding and had like a different name, different everything. He was still living in Japan, but yeah, they only really even talked about it or even acknowledged it because like he died and his son was like found out. His son found out who that
Who his dad was.
His son found out who his dad was, like indebted to these Yakuza, and figured out what was going on. Because as far as he had known, like all his life, like he had been living under this other assumed name and didn't know that his actual real name, he was actually
that'd be so surreal.
Yeah, but it was pretty wild. But yeah, he actually all the people that after Toshimichi left, and he kind of left the company like in shambles. They were like, shit, what do we do now? We still have like episodes to make, but they tried to make money. They tried to do what they couldn't make enough money to keep it going. So they ended up having to stop after episode 8. But then they managed to get a little bit of money from residuals later on. And actually, that was where they were able to actually get a little bit of money to try and continue the series in 1991 as Bubblegum Crash. But Bubblegum Crash, unfortunately, they just did not have the production budget. And a lot of there was a lot of like music involved with the original. There's a whole like anime, or like a whole like somebody, I cannot remember the name of it, does a whole breakdown of the series. And like they had signed like one of the voice actresses in the Japanese version who plays Pris actually is a singer, and that was their shtick, was they would have albums that would release with the new episodes as well, because every single episode has like a whole like soundtrack in and of itself. But yeah, they just didn't have the production budget for that. A lot of the voice actors and everybody else had moved on, so they had to make do with what they could with Bubblegum Crash. It just wasn't as good. And of course, by that time, the economic bubble had collapsed. So there was not really a way to make it what they had wanted to. And they only ended up making, I think, 3 episodes of Bubblegum Crash before they folded. But yeah, that was 7 years later. That's whenever it got picked up by, I think it was JVC or one other company, and actually made into Tokyo 2040. And that was the series that we got. And that's kind of the penultimate series as it is. The animation is great. It definitely is lacking in a few areas. You could tell where you could definitely see some areas where the budget was a little bit thin, but especially once you get to the finale, they knew where to spend their money. So they really did an excellent job with it. And the final several episodes, especially once it goes Night of the Living Dead, but with robots, is just, you need to see it.
That's not. God, I've heard about that. I've heard about that ever since I've gotten into anime. I just never.
Yeah, I think you can find.
The name just didn't sound appealing. Like, okay, the name has nothing to do with what you described.
Yeah, the name, I can't remember the name, like how the name came about, but yes, there was a whole thing of how the name actually came into existence. I don't remember how all that worked out, but yeah. But I can tell you that the complete series of Tokyo 2040 is currently on Amazon. For like $29, and then the HD dystopia of the original Bubblegum Crisis series from the 1980s is on there for $25 on Amazon. So you can get them all, and they're actually relatively cheap. And yeah, I gotta say, again, I'm giving it my full recommendation. Bubblegum Crash and AD Police. Yeah, these two you can still only buy on Animigo's website, but they're only like $7 a pop.
See, I used to have like a collection, probably like yours. I had like 200 or 300.
That whole shelf behind me is just nothing but that.
I had like 200 or 300 movies, DVDs that you can't find anymore. I remember.
Oh yeah, I got to the point, especially probably like 5 or 10 years ago, I would go to peruse like half-price books, and I would find like some of those old gems and whatnot, and just see if I could get my hands on them. I completely fell across this. So this edition of Bubblegum Crisis came out like in the I want to say that early to mid 90s when DVD was like really new.
Yeah.
This was like the first release that they ever had of it in the US. And I was like, I really want that, but I couldn't afford it. Every time I tried to, and then by the time I could afford it, it was gone and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then probably 6 or 7 years ago, I was at a half price books and they had this exact copy right here in my hand. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I think I ended up paying like almost, I think I ended up paying almost like $60 for this whole thing. But it was one of those like,
it's like if you
I don't
don't
care.
do it now, you'll never see it again, kind of thing.
I saw that the same half price books about, I want to say a year and a half later, got one of those same box sets in and actually in worse shape than mine. And it was over 150.
It's like, I remember back in 2010 when Movie Gallery was shutting down. They started selling off their inventory. Like, I could go and with with $5 get like 8 or 9 DVDs. So I spent like $50, got like maybe 200 DVDs. But then like people, like family members, started stealing them, not returning them, and then when Hurricane Michael hit, I lost almost everything but a few bits of clothes and my laptop. So my entire collection is gone. I was still so bummed about that. But it's like I had the very first Dungeons and Dragons movie. You know, the one starring Marlon Wayans and Jeremy Irons, the crappy ones. Like, found so many National Lampoon movies you can't find anymore, that you can't even find online. Some of these movies, and it just bummed me out so much. I miss having this big collection, but it's like. It's like, sounds like to me, I love watching. I like streaming, but there's nothing like, it's like with books. There's nothing like having a hard copy in your hand.
Right.
But,
it really, I mean, physical media is so important these days, especially.
Yeah. Like, I read a lot, and people are always like, "Why don't you go just get a tablet?" I'm like, no, because I love the noise of like rough or flipping pages. I love that. But so yeah, I'm gonna bring it back across the pond, across the Pacific, back over
whenever
to
you got
America.
done, I got one more.
Yeah, we're at an hour and a half. We'll finish with yours.
Yeah.
But did you ever watch Reboot?
Oh yeah, the classic.
This show it still is one of my favorites. It is known mainly for being one of the first fully CGI'd. This came out in 93, so Toy Story could come out in 95, basically.
Right.
And if you watch like the first and like first half of the second, up to the first half of the second season, it's still that almost pixelated. But then like halfway through the second, or maybe even to the third season, that the animation style just skyrocketed. It became so much better. And it's such a fun concept. It was back when computers they were still getting kind of big. Home computers were coming a thing. You know, like I said, this is 94. Original run date was from 94 to 2001. Set inside a computer. It's a world called Mainframe, and each of the characters are different aspects of a computer program. Like you have Bob, he's the main character here in the middle. He's a guardian. Guardians are antivirus programs. You have a character named Fong. He's the command.com of the computer. You have characters that are literally binary code, ones and zeros. They're shaped like ones and zeros. You have viruses who are the big bad guys that just want to take over everything. And this was like when internet was still becoming a big thing, and you had the mysterious World Wide Web.
Yep.
But Bob, like I said, he's what called our guardians, and if you look on his arm, it's Glitch is another one of my favorite anime weapons or tools because he can become anything you want, anything that Bob needs. He just says, "Hey, there's one episode he says Glitch, and he gets flushed or says anything, and Glitch becomes a giant spring."
Yep.
This it don't if you look up reboot, you'll find the reboot the Guardian code. Don't. That is a shit sequel. That is one of the worst sequels ever. But the character designs were awesome. Like Enzo, the little boy right here behind his shoulder, he becomes this big buff. Like
that series finale, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, Matrix is one of my favorite like anti-hero characters. I love his weapon, his gun. It's attached to like his prosthetic eye, and his eye shoots little he can see through his gun, and it shoots little targets, and it's like, oh, it's so cool. The voice acting was amazing. Like let me look it up. Who played Megabyte? Tony J, who played Megabyte, he played Shere Khan in the Jungle Books. He's got that deep.
That voice is one of like the most iconic ones. Him and David Warner and a couple of others, like iconic voices from my childhood. Yes,
it's just like he's evil, but if he was to drink a cup of tea, he'd put his pinky up. That
sophisticated.
Yes, the sophisticated
villain.
And like they have a character who's a web surfer. He's basically a search engine named Ray Tracer, who is such a parody of Mel Gibson. He even has his old, like, people don't realize Mel Gibson's Australian. Because if you hear him talk, he's been in America for 30, 40 years. He doesn't have that. And even in the 80s, and like, if you listen to interviews from the 80s with him on Lethal Weapon, you hear that. But when he's playing in the movies, he doesn't have that accent.
Yeah, if you ever want to know what Mel Gibson's original accent was, watch the Mad Max movies.
Yes, I love that those movies so much. Don't like what they're doing now. Basically, Mad Max without Mad Max.
And the sad part is that they've been talking about doing that for so many years. I mean, Fury Road came out in 2015. And like in 2016, they were talking about doing a standalone Furiosa movie. And then that kind of died on the vine. They talked about doing like the next Mad Max movie with Tom Hardy. And then that like petered out. And then apparently they came back around to the standalone Furiosa movie. Which
with Chris Hemsworth in it now. He's playing the big baddie. And like, I'm tired of these shows that there'll be remakes, but they're gender swap. Like they're doing a new and I hope he's not involved in this, a new Fairly Odd Parents series.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It's like overly CGI'd. I love Butch Hartman's art style, and they have just completely. I hope he's not involved with this new one. They gender and race swapped the main character. Cosmo and Wanda back. I love the actors and the actor and actress who played Cosmo and Wanda. They're back, but there's entirely new. Everyone else is new, I think, except for the fairies.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. Like Cars 3 was just that. They used the last Kung Fu Panda 4 was like that. Poe passing it on to. Instead of them creating new strong female characters, which is what I want these new strong female characters, they're degrading and dehumanizing these male characters so they can empower these female characters.
Yeah, these lesser characters that just don't have any of the They just don't have the chops. I mean, if you want to look, I mean, there's a reason why we love classic female characters like Princess Leia or like Sarah Connor or, Ellen Ripley. I mean, they weren't as like physically built like, say, like their male co-stars were, but they were
kicked
scrappy, they were
ass.
smart, they knew what they were doing, and they could take care of themselves in a situation. And we we glommed onto those characters because there was actually they were human. Okay.
Yes.
They were not some Mary Sue, who gets everything handed to them on a silver platter, and like they're not automatically, or even in many cases at all, better than their male co-stars. They're
Like,
equal,
yeah.
and they actually do what they can, and actually, despite their physical disadvantages, they overcome that using their wits and whatnot. It's
Like
so much
Terminator
better.
2 is my favorite Terminator because just that you see Sarah Connor in her lowest point, but then you see her finally. She's like, okay, this is real. I need to step up, and she comes this baddest. One of my first videos, which if anyone hadn't seen it, I'm a shameless plug, is when Jennifer Lawrence stupidly said she was the first female action
Oh my
hero.
God, yes,
And I'm like,
that.
wait a minute. I started back in the 70s with Foxy Brown, went
Right?
to Terminator with Sarah Connor, Ripley, what's Kate Underworld, what was her name?
I can't remember the
Selena?
character's name, but I know it was
It's Kate
Kate
Beckinsale.
Beckinsale. Yeah,
She's so hot. I love her. She's a great
Selena, I
actress.
think is her the character
Yeah, Selena.
name.
You see all these amazing characters who they just weren't just good for out of the blue. They had to
Yeah,
trade because you see, compared to the first Terminator movie, the Sarah Connor are completely different because she knew what she had to do. She knew she had to grow into it. Ripley was never a soldier, if I remember right.
no, she was
Like,
a navigator on basically a space trucking rig.
yeah, and then she had to step up and kick ass.
Yep.
It's like,
And yeah, with the second Aliens movie, I mean, she didn't want anything to do with them, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna send people to go check this out. And she's like, if you basically, like, if you go and I don't go with you and tell you what you're up against, you're gonna die.
oh yeah, yeah. That whole
And then
scene in the office, yeah, she's like, you're sitting them to their fucking deaths. I don't go with you. And I love that scene where she throws the basketball from behind her, and Ron Perlman's talking to her. She says something like Ron Perlman's saying like something like you're not good enough. She just
it's an Alien Resurrection. Yeah.
yeah. She actually made that shot. That was not CGI. That was not someone off screen throwing it. That was her.
Yeah.
What's the actress name?
Sigourney Weaver.
It's Sigourney Weaver. Funny story about Sigourney Weaver. Me and my friends, we loved. I used to hang out with this group. We loved Ghostbusters, and we would randomly say lines to each other, and we would say like, "There is no Dana, only Zool." And we were in the theater watching Avatar. I had my friend Sky sitting beside me. On her other side, my friend Sam. Me and Sam did not plan this, but we're watching Sigourney Weaver on screen. We both turn to Sky at the same time and say to her in both ears, "There is no Dana, only Zool." And she just turns her head both ways, looking at us like, "What the hell? You couldn't have planned it." I loved like. She's such an even in Ghostbusters 2, her character Dana was a strong woman.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I hate these people. Oh, you don't like Ray. You don't like strong women. Bitch, I got a list like a mile long of these strong female characters that I absolutely love. Cara Dune is one of my I don't care what people think about Gina Carano. She will always be one of my favorite Star Wars characters.
Oh yes.
And
indeed.
what they did to Mando in season 3, when my heart broke when he handed the dark saber to Bo-Katan.
I stopped watching after the finale for season 2 because I'm like, yeah, they're gonna fuck this up. Sorry, excuse my language.
You're free to cuss. It don't bother me.
Okay.
I'm not monetized yet, nowhere near. I probably won't ever be monetized. Yeah, basically they go to Mandalore. He gets captured by this droid, almost killed. She comes in and saves him. She wants to take over the Mandalorians who that male Mandalorian from season 1 that they meet when he meets up with Bo-Katan for the first time. He's taken over and off doing mercenary work.
Yep.
But Bo-Katan wants him to follow him. He's like, you don't have the Darksaber, so I'm not following you. Well, Mando's like, yes, she does. She saved me from the droid here. It's like, no. And then they ruined it because they finally had Christopher Lloyd in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And he could have been a Mandalorian in a DeLorean. That was the joke that's been going on for years on the internet. And he's this little wimpy Count
bureaucrat,
Dooku,
basically.
No, he's a separatist. He's a Count Dooku simp. He goes on this whole spiel like Dooku was right. He should have won. He had the right idea. I'm like, oh god. And they had Lizzo of all people in that episode.
Yeah, Lizzo and Jack Black. I'm like, oh god, can you get? I mean, talk about the potpourri of pathetic. I mean, oh my god.
Jack Black, he was a good actor, but not even him. He couldn't even save those scenes with Lizzo.
Well,
he was such
Jack
a bad
Black
actor.
Was good, but then he started. He's kind of just he's a little too high on the smell of his own farts. Yeah, my opinion, but you know.
Yeah, I can see that. I love School of Rock. I like his early stuff. Saving Silverman, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, his early stuff is pretty good.
Tenacious D. I could listen to Tenacious D forever. I love Tenacious D. The Pick of Tribute, Destiny, Fuck Her Gently. These are songs that
I actually got to see that in theaters, actually.
I was still in high school when it came out, I think. I was too young for it.
I think I was either in high school or getting ready to get out of high school, like right there at the tail end.
But yeah, when did that come out? Yeah, I was 2005, 2006. I was just out of high school at that time.
I was just going into college at that point.
Yeah, I was too. So we're the same age. Yeah. But she was so wooden in her acting. Not even Jack Black, who's usually bigger than life in these roles. He played a reformed imperialist.
Yeah.
Like with the Mandalorian and Ahsoka, you're seeing how the First Order, what allowed the First Order to rise up. You're thinking, you're like, why in the hell would you let these imperial racists work in your government?
Exactly.
And but what they did to Gina Carano, and now with Carl Weathers passed away, I'm like, that's two of the big three. How are they gonna do another season? But I heard they're gonna do a Mandalorian movie.
So from what I've heard, Mando season 4, there's a lot of questions around it. From what I have heard, this is not substantiated, but take this with a grain of salt. From what I've heard, Mando season 4 is canceled, and they're actually rolling season 4, what they were going to do, into the Mando movie. There's an alternate rumor out there that season 4 is basically going to set up, if it does go forward, it's going to set up basically with Bo-Katan eventually taking over, like where, Din Djarin basically just, F's off and goes somewhere else and he's done. And then the Mandalorian, it starts following Bo-Katan and Grogu around. And then apparently there's some speculation that the Mandalorian and Grogu is actually Bo-Katan and Grogu, not Din Djarin and Grogu.
That's bullshit. That is so much bullshit.
But that's the rumor going around anyway.
But the final scene in season 3, I know you said it's Grogu and Din Djarin at the little cottage on the lava planet, and you know,
Yep.
then John's got his feet kicked back, sitting in his chair, and Grogu's at a little pond getting frogs. But I got to show you something. I'm going to turn my face cam for a few minutes. Hold on a sec. Something I got for May the 4th. Okay, what are you doing? Why is this not working?
I was going to say, if that's your view, can I visit?
I'm going to turn off my virtual background for a minute. Why is my camera not working? What? My camera's not working. Holy crap. Yeah, it's not working. I got a lightsaber. I'll have to figure this out and show another stream. I got a lightsaber for on May the 4th. I'll bring it. I got pictures. I'm gonna bring it up. I've always wanted my own fucking lightsaber, and I finally got it. Let me bring that up. But I got it for it was like a $250 price. I got for $120.
Oh, nice.
Because May the 4th they had it for 80% off plus free shipping and handling.
So is it Ultra Sabers or
Neo Sabers?
Neo Saber or
next? Hold on.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember all the ones. I mean, I've seen them.
RX Sabers is what I got.
RX Sabers. Okay.
I shopped around for a dozen websites, and for the price I paid for this one, and it has sounds, and the light changes to every lightsaber color.
Oh, nice.
And it even has a mode where you have blaster deflection sound effects. With Neo Sabers, the price for that I would have gotten just the handle with no sound.
Okay.
So for the price I got for this, it was let me find. God, I need to clean out my computer. Holy crap! Here it is. But it is the quality of it. It is heavy metal.
Nice.
It is I could drop the handle and probably it would break whatever it lands on more than it would get broken. But hold on. I love this. I don't get to show it off that much.
Ooh.
So look at it. It's got the gold. It's you see the gold.
Gold accents, yeah.
Gold accents and the blue. That's what sold me. I love the black and the blue and the gold. Ignore the Power Ranger axe blaster and the Ghostbuster pillow. I got the Ghostbuster pillow when I went and saw Frozen Empire a few months ago.
Okay, cool.
And I got that and a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man popcorn bucket. So the handle, it's about probably over 2 feet. The blade is great sound effects. I muted it and can't figure out how to turn the sound effects back on. Yeah. But it's heavy. It's heavier than it looks. It's got some weight to it. It's one of the ones that you could actually hit duel with.
Okay.
And it was for the price that I got it. If I would have gotten those other major websites that a lot of people think, I would have just gotten the hand. I would have had to pay for the handle plus the soundboard they install. I think the price was $200 just for that. Okay. And that was you had to pick one color. You couldn't. This one changes the colors.
Oh, nice.
But it was awesome. So you got one more for me?
Yeah, I'll condense down to just one more. I've got a couple of more. We'll save those for another episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess I can't really I can't talk about my favorite sci-fi, series, especially anime from the 90s, without talking about Macross.
Yes, that was one of the first one. I watched Robotech when they tried to like Americanize it and failed.
Yeah, so
but it got me
it's
interested in
so, oh my
Macross.
god, the legal hurdles around Robotech and Macross are just ridiculous. So yeah, for the audience out there, the as condensed as I can possibly make it. So basically, there was this series. So Robotech is actually the series Macross, as Super Dimension Fortress Macross in Japan. They did some editing, they did some changes to the series to make it Robotech, and they also decided to make Robotech like multiple seasons, but they're all like different series. So you've got like the first season of Robotech is Macross. The second season of Robotech is Galaxy what was it? Galaxy Collider Mospeada or something like that. Or
I don't remember.
yeah, Galaxy Rider Mospeada. Season 3 is like a different like yeah. So like all three of the various like seasons of Macross or not Macross of Robotech are different anime series that they just redubbed and turned into one continuous like series. It does not work at all. But yeah, essentially what happened was that in like the mid 80s, a real estate company called Harmony Gold
Yes.
actually wanted to get into the TV industry. And so the company that made the original Macross series overseas, they actually wanted to market it here in the US. They wanted to bring it to the US for people to watch. But they were like, okay, we don't have a distributor over in the States. And so Harmony Gold stepped in and was like, oh, hey, well, sell us the rights to do this in the United States, and sell us the rights. And they did some really scummy like lawyer stuff to like convince them, hey, like just give us the rights to the series. We'll do it here in the States. You guys can still have all your rights and everything to the series over in Japan. You guys can still keep doing your own thing, and this will be ours. It'll be our own thing, but we'll distribute it for you, and it'll be great. And they were like, yeah, okay, sure. So Harmony Gold then goes in and completely gets rid of the original audio track. There's nothing in the original audio track left. They
Not even sound
recut all
effects?
sound effects, everything, the sound effects, the soundtrack, and the dialogue completely gone. And if you buy Robotech here in the States, it is only in English. They have no like Japanese version. The only way that you can actually watch the original Super Dimension Fortress Macross in the United States is if you buy a copy of it from Japan and have a Japan region DVD or Blu-ray player.
Really?
That's the only way you can watch it. The original. Now, thankfully, some absolute mad lad recently put all of the episodes of the original Macross series, Super Dimension Fortress Macross, on YouTube. He cut them all together as like 6-episode blocks, and they're available on YouTube. I've been going back through and rewatching them, and you still cannot find the movie Macross. Do You Remember Love, which was the first Macross movie? Can't find that in the States at all.
No,
It was only
isn't
available
that
in
the
Japan.
one where Rick and what's her name get married? Lisa, I think, is what her character
Lisa
is.
Hayes. Yeah,
an American. And can I just say that Minmay is one of the most annoying.
Oh my god.
She cannot sing, and the fact that she becomes a super like mega singer boggles my mind.
In the Japanese version, the original, they actually got an actual singer to voice that character. In the US version, they're like, whoever we got.
Harmony Gold was probably trying to save money in casting.
Oh yeah. Harmony Gold cut every corner, and they use like stock sound effects. They got a very generic sounding like soundtrack to replace the original. And they actually recut the series in several places to actually change up the story a little bit, and they actually got sued by Big West and the original distributor about that. But essentially, there was that whole lawsuit between Harmony Gold and Big West over the rights to the series, which is one of the longest legal cases in history, lasting over 30 years. And it was not settled until 2022. It was settled in 2022. They decided to go ahead and, okay, Robotech is now Robotech, Macross is Macross, and okay, we've settled the debate once and for all. The system has settled the debate. So whatever Harmony Gold has is their own thing now, and then whatever Macross has is their own thing. But
that's probably why, because I think it was last year I read this amazing comic book. It was a crossover between Robotech and Voltron. Yes. I loved it. It was so good. It something like Voltron gets blasted into the world of Robotech, and they create this other line, which is a cross between Robotechnology and Voltron. It was like a white lion, and it was so good. It was really good because like the Voltron crew has to come together. They have to find each other because they've been blasted all over the world, and they're dealing with the military machine from Robotech, that military industrial complex.
Right.
It was a really good comic. I love crossover comics like that.
Yeah, those are really good. Very few people know about the second big legal case against Macross. And that was actually between Macross and, believe it or not, the company FASA, or just as I call it, FASA, who created and ran the original BattleTech board game, like the original BattleTech war game. So BattleTech came out in '84, and they wanted to actually license a bunch of mechs from other like anime and other pop culture things to include in their games. And so one of the things that they did was they actually got several Macross several of the Macross mechs from the original company that did Macross. So the rifleman, what was it? I gotta find I have a list here. So that's Megazone, BattleTech. Okay. Anyway, so the longbow, the tomahawk, and rifleman, and a couple of others were all from originally Macross, and they are from Macross, and they actually got put into the BattleTech game. And then there was a whole big dust up over the licensing of that. And of course, once that had all settled out, then Harmony Gold stepped in. A common theme is that every time that Harmony Gold or somebody else does something related to Macross, Harmony Gold would always countersue, or they would always get a lawsuit in there to make more money off of it. Just, completely scummy behavior. But anyway, yeah, it was a whole thing. And because of all that, legal battles and stuff, we didn't actually, we can't have the original stuff here in the States. And we've only been able to find a handful. They released Macross, Shadow Chronicles, and then Macross Plus only got a single Blu-ray release under the manga label, at one point here in the US. This is actually really good. I love Macross Plus because it's kind of like Top Gun, but in anime.
Yeah. I always got that feeling that just with it's the amazing dogfights in it.
Yeah, it's doubly the certain in Macross Plus because they're test pilots and they have to try. They're trying to compete for who's gonna get the big military contract to develop the new transforming fighter. And there's a whole there's like the actual main thrust of the plot is actually this AI that's a singer that is doing some weird stuff and actually becomes sentient. It's a whole wild story. It's really worth it though. I love it. But yeah, the legal back and forth has been ridiculous between Harmony Gold and Big West and whatnot. It was thankfully settled in 2022, so that can be finally put behind us. And while we still don't have an official release date yet, Macross Plus is going to be released both as a movie version on Blu-ray and also going to be getting a theatrical run here in the United States now.
Finally.
So now again, it still has not been released yet, and I think there hasn't been any official word on this, but I've got a few ears in the right places, if you know what I mean, that says that originally they were going to do a like an original just restoration from the original to 2K, which would be like Blu-ray quality. Well, I've heard some unofficial rumors that they found the original masters of the original series, and not only have they found the masters, but they now, because of that, it sounds like it may actually get a 4K upgraded release.
Oh, that would.
And because the lawsuit is settled now, it will be coming to the United States, which will be awesome. But there's a problem.
Another one.
Because the entire slate of everything Macross was just recently picked up, and a licensing deal has been officially inked to stream all of the Macross, like everything across the entire Macross like genre, the entire franchise, and it's all going to be stuck on one network.
Which
Disney
network?
Plus.
Oh, come on.
Disney has officially bought the license to everything Macross now.
You remember you were talking, you mentioned earlier this evil corporation, remember how
Get 'em? Yeah.
The evil corporation in real life is going to have a pair of mouse ears.
Oh, I know. It's ridiculous.
I need to find this because I'd love to share this. There's a diagram I've seen in the shape of Mickey Mouse ears of every media
Venn diagram, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's shaped like a Mickey Mouse ears, but it's hundreds. It's got to be 100, 120 media outlets that Disney owns. It's like, if you want to boycott Disney, you can't.
Here's the sad part, because this is news that just broke recently, and I have not had a chance to do a video on this yet, but it's in the pipeline. It's actually slated to release on Monday, so you guys are getting a little bit of an advanced screener from Kaiser. So Disney has officially put out word that they are buying up anime left and right. They've realized they can't compete in the anime market right now, and they can't compete on any other market level because their box office is just absolute dog crap right now. And then nothing that they've done has really been churning out any profits. Let me be completely honest. I think that Deadpool 3 probably is going to be every bit the smash hit that everybody is looking forward to. But I think it's going to be a flash in the pan. I mean, it's going to be I think it's going to make a lot of money, but then Disney's not going to learn anything from it because they never do. And then it's going to it's going to be a one-off. And then, the people that are trying to say Deadpool 3 is going to save the MCU. No. Disney needs a long run of successes to actually get back on top. And they can't do it.
I think you said it. You hit the nail on the head with one of the Deadpool is going to be a flashbang. They've had maybe one or two other ones. But majority of I still have not seen Madam Web.
I didn't either.
I refuse to watch Miss Marvel. I
have not seen a Marvel movie since Thor Ragnarok.
Ragnarok to me was a disappointment too, because it was I mentioned before, we talked about this before, it was fresh off of Guardians the Galaxy. It was Guardians, and Guardians, it had that content from the comics, that goofiness.
Yeah.
Thor never had, and they tried to do it. They tried to do like a Guardians thing.
They tried to take the success of Guardians of the Galaxy, which incorporated some like classic rock songs, and also tried to go off the more funny, goofy vibe, and they tried to incorporate that into Thor, which does not work.
No.
And it's one of those. It's one of I still hold this up to people, and I like, seriously, if you want proof that they think that you're dumb, look at Thor Ragnarok, and then what they did afterward with Disney going forward and Marvel going forward. Because essentially they had, like you said, Guardians of the Galaxy was a huge hit. And then they were like, oh, let's just do Guardians of the Galaxy, but do that with Thor 3. And then subsequently, like, do all the other stuff, all other movies with that aesthetic. And then with the Avengers, they did the Avengers movies without that.
Yeah.
And look, I have not seen Endgame or Infinity War. I don't care. And there's no way to make me care about it, because again, they lost me at Thor Ragnarok. They had an opportunity to keep me there, and they lost me. And then, after those two movies, they just completely lost it, and they didn't know what they were doing anymore. That was phase 4.
Like you said, a broken clock is right twice a day, and I think with Loki, the Loki TV series was really good. I enjoyed it.
Didn't care to watch it.
I can understand, because one, I think we are so oversaturated with superhero movies.
Yeah.
They are going to go the way of the old Western movies soon, because remember, there was a time in Hollywood everything was Western.
Oh yeah, everything was Westerns.
Then after a while, it started becoming more like crime, inner city, like urban crime stuff.
Right.
And I think pretty soon, I say maybe 2 or 3 years, that superhero bubble is going to pop. If that.
I think that here's the problem that I have with it. With that, I believe me, I really do kind of, in a lot of ways, kind of believe that you might be on the right track there, but they're gonna do everything they can to string the superhero genre along. They paid too much money into this. They paid too much money into it. First of all. Second of all, then they oversaturated the market. They actually had some wins with phase 1, 2, 3, and then they dropped off a cliff. And then now they're like, oh crap, what do we do? Phase 4, phase 5, both of those are a joke. And so what they would
pure unadulterated horse shit.
Like, what they would need to do is get back to making quality content again, and there's only one way that they're going to actually fix that problem. And the problem is that Kevin Feige has already said he doesn't want to do it, and that is they would have to reboot the entire MCU and start over.
I don't see that ever happening.
It's far more likely that happens than... they would have to
get rid of Kevin Feige first, I think.
Yeah, Kevin is pretty much the one thing that's holding them from doing that right now, because he just wants to plow ahead and keep doing more stuff.
It's like, I started streaming around the time She-Hulk came out.
Yeah.
And I had to suffer through that show for this channel.
I'm sorry.
It's like, there was no good male character in that. And when I say good, I don't mean well written, like a generally good person, a good male person in that show. there is she is with Bruce Banner, a man who has lost pretty much everything in his life. She and Jen knows this. His father was a drunk abuser. Bruce's father killed his mother in front of him. Bruce would, when his father would get drunk, would run to Jen's house. This is all in the comics and in like lore and everything. He finally becomes the top in his field through all that hardship, only to get nuked, lose his girlfriend in Betty Ross, only for her father to start chasing him across the world, finally finds someone who likes him and is not afraid of the Hulk in Natasha, only for her to be blinked out of existence. I'm gonna get killed off.
Yeah.
This is all in the last Avengers in the end game. He snaps, saves the entire universe, losing the use of his arm. She ends up getting infected with her blood through a car crash because of a spaceship that shows up. It's supposed to be in the comics. I think it was a hit on Bruce gone wrong, and Jen gets almost killed. And he has to do a blood transfusion, which to me was always the most stupid thing Bruce Banner could have ever done. She looks at him. She's hulked out. She looks at him and says something like, I have my anger under control. I have to deal with men on a daily basis who I'm infinitely smarter than, more competent at our job. And who can't call me, and if I say anything, I'll get told I'm hard to work with or even killed. And Bruce in this scene is just looking at her like, really? She fights him every step of the way. He even says, why aren't you listening to someone who has gone through this before?
Right.
There's a scene like when she wakes up from you can tell I hate this with a passion. She wakes up after the car crash and learns that she's going to be a Hulk. And Bruce has his arm back because he's still in a sling. He's still from snapping everyone back into existence. And she uses her blood to heal himself. And he's like, oh, this is so interesting. Your blood metabolizes gamma radiation differently, and I was able to use it to fix my arm. She looks at him and says, so it's better than you. He's like, no, just different. But different in a better way. It's like, bitch, come on.
Shut up. Yeah.
Now, like, there's a scene where she's hulked out. Now, and they totally ruined She-Hulk character. Because when she's Jen, she's supposed to be kind of standoffish, bookwomish, kind of meekish. But as She-Hulk, she's confident. She's brimming with like sexuality. You don't see that. You don't see that in the character. You don't see that change when she transforms. It's like, holy shit. And then they had Daredevil, who I love the Daredevil show.
Yeah, the Netflix Daredevil series was fantastically done.
I love that shot with that fight scene where down the hall, it's just the camera pounding down the hall, him coming in and out of the rooms. That was all, it's choreographed amazingly because it's all done in one shot. He's like to me, he's Daredevil. That actor, he was great. He does the walk of shame because he hooks up with Jennifer and he's in his full Daredevil costume and he's just walking down the sidewalk with his shoes in his hand. I'm like, oh God.
Yep.
But she had to break the fourth wall to actually beat the bad guy.
Yeah. And the AI's name was Kevin.
It's like she breaks into the writer's room and starts chewing their asses out. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Did you hear that that episode was actually a rewrite?
That was the idea they went with.
So
holy crap.
Originally, if I remember correctly, I think that the actual the ending was supposed to be a much more conventional ending. and then they actually did reshoots, and they reshot that whole sequence, and they did that. They're like, crap, nobody likes this series. Because I think the reshoots happened while the series was still, like, actually premiering after it had already been in the can, so to speak. And apparently had to go back and redo that one. Well, I mean, it's not anything we don't already know about, like, Disney recently, because, the Book of Boba Fett, the season finale of Book of Boba Fett, but a lot of people don't know this, but there were actually reshoots happening up until midnight the day before.
Really?
Yeah, that the final episode premiered. There were reshoots happening, like, right up until the point like that happened. They had to basically rush through a lot of the CG, like, almost overnight, just so that way it could get into the premiere on time.
And yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for dropping in.
Oh, and
I know we're getting late. Yeah, but like, what does it say about you when the show's called The Book of Boba Fett, but the best episode is about Mando?
2 episodes of Mandalorian, yeah.
But to me, it took one of the, and that episode, those episodes took one of the worst ships in Star Wars and made it bad fucking
made it cool.
It's a rat rod. It is a freaking rat rod from like the 40s and 50s. And it's so freaking cool. You have a good night's sleep. You try to get some rest in you.
Good night.
I know you probably it's been a crazy time for all of us. I don't. Yeah. When what Disney CEO? He's been Michael Eisenberg. Is he the CEO of Disney? Eisen.
No, I don't remember that one. I'm sorry, my brain kept trying to go to Bob Iger.
Is it Bob Iger?
Bob Iger's the current CEO.
Yeah, Bob Iger. He doesn't. He's always going on. Oh, Disney's losing so much, so let's beat ourselves in the head with the same stick over and over again. Because maybe this time it'll work.
Right. Yeah, and
thanks, Jacob. Yeah,
Bob's whole shtick has been, we're not going to focus on making new stuff like with what already exists here. We're just going to buy up other people's stuff and then make that. That's exactly what they've done with Marvel. It's exactly what they've done with Star Wars. And, well, I mean, guess what? That's what they're now trying to do with anime, because now they're like buying up all. Yeah, there's the exclusive I was going to tell you about. So they're buying up anime left and right. They're trying to get rights to buy up all this anime. But here's the kicker, though. Following all of the controversy about all these localizers and stuff that were inserting all their own political and
Funimation and all that.
Yeah. How that got busted, and now Funimation's going down. Funimation's gone. They're gone.
And you know what? I will piss on their grave at any chance I get. I hated what they did to Vic, and I hated the insertions that they were doing.
Yep.
I could not. I hated it.
Yeah, the identity politics stuff.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Disney is now officially saying that not only they have actually come out and said it. And there's a news article I've got a copy of here somewhere, that they've literally come out and said, oh yeah, we're buying these up, and yeah, we're going to localize them, but we're going to change them to fit more with Disney's ethics going forward. So they are literally admitting that they are going to do the same thing that literally collapsed all of, Funimation into the ground, and what's led to the whole like AI localizer drama thing that's been going on.
Yeah, I remember. The AI issue was really big in the writer strike and actor strike last year, and
the actor side of it I can understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the writer side of it.
My intro is AI generated.
Yeah,
the music is AI. I edited pictures and sequences together, but it was from Suno.
Yep. I have a song from Suno as well. I just haven't edited it together yet.
It's a great program, but it does not need to be the be all end all.
Right.
AI to me is in some ways more scary than nuclear war, in my opinion.
Oh
It
yeah,
will, it will,
100%.
because control, it will control what we see, which and what the information we get, which in turn will control how we think.
Yeah, it'll
You know,
control how we perceive things. Yes.
because it's mind control is just controlling how someone perceives something. That's all it
Yeah.
is. The libertarian in me says if they can't write better stories, then the market will correct itself. Well,
Yes. The
I
problem is they're trying to give that job to a computer, and the computer only does pattern recognition. It's just saying, okay, this idea and this idea are popular. Let me find a way to bridge these two ideas together. It's just playing with Tinker Toys, is all it is. The problem is that it has no soul. It has no heart. It can spit out a script in under 5 minutes, or it can spit out a whole song, or do all these graphics and stuff in record time, and it's only going to get better from here. But the problem is that you've taken officially the visionary aspect of things. You've taken the soul of what is humanity out of everything.
Yeah.
Because we used to have this thing called art.
Yes.
Art used to come from a place of, like it came from the human soul. You would have to have a certain type of skill set. Yes, I get that. But the thing is, no two people are created equal, and no two people are the same. So you have to think about it from the perspective of every person's art is different, but it has to, at fundamental levels, come from a human soul. It comes from a human mind, and by taking that away and turning that over to computer generated whatever, okay, it's going to spit out stuff that it already knows you like, and it's just going to try and spit those out in randomly generated fashions and blink flashy colors and pictures in front of your eyes. So that way you'll clap like an idiot seal and be like, oh, well, that was good.
See, it's like my college theater professor, he had this saying, what he tried to teach us. He said, an actor's job is not to make someone feel good or bad. It is to make them feel.
Right.
Make them feel something. And he would always say, computers, they're never going to get that. You don't get that. You get a different kind of feeling when you're in a theater than when you're in a movie, or you're watching something at home within a group of people. And we're not, pretty soon, with the death of movie theaters, we're not going to get that feeling. And it's heartbreaking, kind of, because I love that shared experience.
Well, that's why I do what I do on my channel, to try and bring as much awareness and information on the entertainment industry, because the best thing that people out there, like our viewers, could possibly hope for is people like you and me looking at everything and going, hey, and pointing this out and being like, hey, okay, here's why this is not maybe a good idea, or maybe whatever it is a good idea. It's not because we're smarter or anything like that. It's just we kind of have a different perspective on things. And that's all it comes down to. Trust me, I will tell people, from the time the dust is dawn, that if you look at me and you look at my brother, you'll find out that my brother was the smart one. I'm the dumb one. So, as knowledgeable as I can be on some topics, I mean, I know that there are things that I am just severely deficient in. But fundamentally, what it comes down to is that we are taking the soul out of the creative process. And if you do that,
well said.
It is the creative death of the human race. And then that does not go well at all. Because then you'll have people that, like, no matter what they create, that what might be beautiful, might be amazing, somebody's going to look at that and be like, well, I made an AI that could do something similar to that and takes less time, and I don't have to pay it.
Yep.
So, we're going to go with that option there. Okay? And, that's just going to be the death of creativity, the death of culture. And it's gonna just continue to spiral out of control until
I think that's what some people want. They want.
Oh, I agree. I mean, all these
crazy.
WEF and New World Order types, that's what they want.
The stuff Winning talks about. But it's like I had a teacher in school. He was a math teacher. Thought his class was the end all be all. Like your existence started and ended at his door. Well, me and my friends, we were in band. We would sometimes have to be excused for band things, for band event. He hated it.
I had to take some Sudafed. My sinus infection has been really bothering me the last couple of days.
We're gonna be wrapping this up soon. We've been going 2.5 hours. I could talk about this stuff.
Oh, I know. I can keep going.
But he would fight our band director to keep us in class. So she finally told us one time, she's like, tell him what music is. Music is math. You're taking and this is why I believe the arts are so important. The arts are taking what you learn in math, science, and reading.
Right.
And you're applying them. In the arts, when you're painting, you're doing chemistry. You're mixing the colors. You have to find that right balance of colors to find the color you want. In the theater, we're reading, we're reciting. In music, it's just pure. There's a reason. It's the reason that in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, to communicate with the aliens, they used music.
Yeah, because music and different tonal values within mathematical context was able to bridge that language gap, and that's brilliant.
Like music is, if you want a universal language, look to music. Because I remember I was down in Mexico on a church trip once, and we were doing some musical stuff for kids, and we learned. Okay, our counselor was like, "We're going to learn this in English." And then we learned it. And she's like, "We're going to learn this in Spanish." I'm just kidding you. It's the same thing. It's like you would take a song by the Beach Boys or NSYNC. You put it in another language, you're gonna instantly still recognize it. It's gonna connect people across oceans in a way that really nothing ever does. But there are so many people who don't see the value of the arts.
Right.
They just see, and I think the studios are becoming just money mills. They want the money. They don't want the art.
Yeah, the studios have lost their way. They don't understand that what they have thrived off of and what they have continually benefited from for literally a century at this point is a creative, artistic process. And now they're like, okay, we don't care. We just want the money mill. Just keep cranking out more and more stuff. So they've taken this thing, cinema, and have taken it and turned it from a great way to not only make a little bit of money, but also free artistic expression and actually make something visually and functionally fascinating, which can be discussed and philosophized over by scholars and whatnot and movie critics. Well, they're taking that now and they're like, they just want to replace that with a giant sewer pipe of just pumping content into your eyes. It's just content. They don't, again, look at the wording that they use. They're not even hiding it. It's in plain sight. It's not film. It's not movies. It's not cinema. It's not stories. It's content. They just want content. It's just a never-ending stream of sludge that they want to pump into your eyes.
Yeah, I've mentioned, like, I think it started with Harry Potter, that turning every teenage book into a movie. For 10, 15 years, we had just taking every single book, not a young adult novel. It started with Harry Potter. It got huge with Twilight, and then huge again with the Hunger Games, and you've had little sprinkles of other lesser successful ones, like the Divergent series, or one I went and saw. It was the last Brendan Fraser movie I saw of him, it was called Inkheart, before he went on his hiatus for a long time. But then
I mean, I would even so far as to say that it really started in 1999 with the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because when the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out, I mean, look, people have tried to do Lord of the Rings in a movie format since the 1970s. Ralph Bakshi did his animated Lord of the Rings movie.
Rankin Bass.
Rankin Bass did a couple of those as well. They did The Hobbit and Return of the King. But it was really Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings movie, which was Lord of the Rings and part of the Two Towers, that actually really were the closest we would ever get for a long time to actually making Lord of the Rings in a cinematic format. Nobody thought it could be done. And then
didn't they use
Peter Jackson?
Didn't he use that kind of
rotoscope?
Rotoscope. It was like that live action bits of it meshed with animation. I never liked that, so I could never watch his versions. I didn't care for that style.
Rotoscope is an interesting tool. I mean, I could go on a whole like 5-hour thing on just animation in general, but rotoscope is an interesting tool if used properly. But like there were a lot of those scenes and everything where there was like just big battles and whatnot. They couldn't just animate over the things that were going on. They had to actually just like kind of desaturate and overexpose certain parts and then recolor them to try and make it look like animation, which didn't really work. But I mean, they tried and they did some really good stuff with it. And there's, I mean, I still love the original Lord of the Rings, Ralph Bakshi animated movie. I still love it. It's good. It's not as good as, the Peter Jackson movies. But I mean, again, the Peter Jackson movies, they said, hey, they got the right, people behind that project, first of all, because they got Peter Jackson, and Peter Jackson was like, look, I'm not here to try and play the politics. I'm not trying to hear and, do anything. I want to try and I love the Lord of the Rings. I want to do the best I can to properly capture the spirit of Tolkien's work. And so, I mean, he spent years developing that before it even ever came out. And then on top of that, then the studio said, okay, well, here's the condensed script that we want you to shoot. He goes, what about all the expanded content and everything that I told you what we wanted to like really make this work? And they're like, no, we don't want any of that. So he basically like talked to some of the execs and whatnot and like, try and basically say, hey, he basically worked to get anybody off the set that would be there to try and, tell him, oh, hey, we don't need to be shooting that because that's not in the shooting script. He basically bullied Warner Brothers or not Warner Brothers. I think it was Legendary and one other. It might have been Warner. I don't know. But he basically bullied them into saying, okay, we're just going to give you the money. You send us back a finished movie and we'll just call it done. Because they already knew it was going to be a big project anyway.
Oh, hell
because they had to shoot all 3 movies at the same time. Well, so Peter Jackson, what he ended up doing was like, no, I'm going to shoot everything. There are still hundreds of hours of footage that we still have not seen today. There is a whole scene of like of Eowyn fighting orcs in the glittering caves beneath Helm's Deep, which we've never seen.
I've seen like little like snippets of it.
Yeah. But again, the thing is that so Jackson put this whole thing together. He shot all of it. He gave the studio the 2.5-hour theatrical cut, and they were like, great, we're going to release that. So they released it in theaters, and the studio was like, blown away by the response. They're like, oh my God, this is great. But then like so many people are complaining that it's kind of like truncated in places and it's not good enough. And then that's when Jackson literally basically came in and unzipped his pants and flipped his knob on the table and said, yeah, FYI, if you want the real version that I wanted to show you, here's the 4-hour extended cut.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, okay, nobody will watch this. Like, he's like, just try it. So they sat down, they watched the movie, and they were like, oh crap, this is way better. Do you have the other two movies done this way? He goes, of course I did. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. And so they were like, okay, maybe we can release it as as an extended edition, like have like all this like extra stuff. We'll make it a big special edition because special editions were really big back then.
Yeah.
And then we'll release that, and then people will maybe see if they buy it. And sure enough, as Peter Jackson believed, and as he had said, the extended editions have far outstripped the original theatrical cuts.
Oh,
Nobody even watches the theatrical cuts anymore. Everybody wants the extended edition because that's the proper edition to watch. And yes, that is every bit of what they're worth.
It's like there's so many, like you're watching the theatrical version. Yeah, you're right. There's so many spots where like, okay, what they're saying how is this making any sense?
It's very short. It's truncated, and sometimes they rush the editing in a lot of areas.
Like one of my favorite deleted scenes, which I hated that they took out, was when they're riding to Helm's Deep, and what's her name? Theoden's niece.
Eowyn.
Eowyn is talking to Aragorn, and they stop for dinner, and you realize why he's so special. He's 80 fucking years old.
Yeah, 87.
And
yeah.
So much like you lose so much of the relationship between Gimli and Legolas. Like you don't find out what happened to those two. We find out what happened to everyone else. You don't realize Gimli became a king among dwarves.
Yeah.
And he was the only dwarf that got to go to the Undying Land due to his friendship with Legolas. And Gimli's my favorite character. I love
hands down.
John Rhys Davies playing him was hilarious. He was so.
And it's so funny that John Rhys Davies, whenever he actually showed up and did like the first the first screen test or like did some of the early stuff, he was pretty confident that they were not going to be like doing a serious Lord of the Rings movie, but he had been given the opportunity to audition anyway, so he's like, whatever. So he basically like half-assed it, and they still got the part. But then,
you're welcome, Jacob.
Essentially, what he basically said was that we went into like the screen test, and he was like, okay, I just don't give a fuck. I'm gonna half-ass this because I don't think this is gonna actually be anything. And then he got on set and he met with Peter Jackson. And Peter and his team, they were going back and forth. They had all these notes, they had all this documentation, and he was impressed by the level of detail. Because like he did like the first line reading, and like Peter Jackson like stopped him and like, okay, no, that's not how Gimli would do this. Here's what I've got. Here's the way it's translated into the book. And like he was impressed by his level of detail. And then he's like, maybe I should try this again. Let me give it the due diligence it deserves. And he knocked it out of the park. And I mean, that's kind of the reason why and it's so funny because before Gimli in Lord of the Rings, dwarves in fantasy did not have like a stereotypical like Scottish accent. It was because of John Rhys Davies and his character and how he did that as dwarves as we know it typically have Scottish accents.
I love I used to watch all the vlogs that they would put online, the behind the scenes. John Rhys Davies, one of his middle fingers I think is shorter due to an accident. And so they put a prosthetic on because, God forbid, Gimli has a finger short. But he would peel it off with like a knife every day after. He's like, oh, we have to go get Pete. We have to go mess with me. He's like, Peter, my finger feels weird, and he takes it and he takes the knife and starts cutting it, and he had the special effects person put a little drop of blood in it, and he said,
"Oh yeah."
Peter just went completely white. But I was watching one of the way they did it. A lot of people didn't realize Gimli's father is in The Hobbit. He's one of the members, Gloin, which there's a vlog, behind the scenes vlog, where John Rhys Davies goes visits the bag in scene where they're filming the bag in scene in The Hobbit. He sees Gloin. He's like, Daddy, puts his arms out, goes and hugs him, and he's talking about it, like, oh, you'll enjoy it when Peter has you running through the hills of New Zealand in full armor, because people didn't realize they had the armor plus the fat suits and because they went through, like, for The Hobbit, they went through like weeks of boot camp to learn how to bring their center of gravity down like a dwarf would have. They would like that long barrel out. It's just amazing. And the work Weta Workshop did for these movies were just insanely detailed to the smallest detail, because what if Peter wants to do a close-up on something? He's got to have that option. So like all the papers you see in Bag In actually have writing of the correct
they're
race
actually done, and they're all handwritten too.
They did the same thing for Fallout. The creator of Fallout, when he was visited the sets, he was in an overseer's office, and they had literally like documents on like shipments, the stacks of papers with shipment what are they called? Reports, or it's not the word I'm looking. I want
like
manifests. Yeah, they had all these all over. It's like, because what if the director wants to zoom in on that?
Right.
But it's I kind of agree with Jacob Peets in chat. The arts are dying, and the studios are killing it. But I think, and that's why I think they see us as independent creators as such a dangerous competition, and because they don't, because
they don't rule us.
No,
they don't own us.
And I if I could not create, I'd probably be on something, because I love. Like I said, I was in band, and there was nothing like being on the football field during a halftime show, marching and hitting that last step and that last note just ringing through the stands, and seeing all your classmates and friends jumping to their feet. There was no better high. Is the best way I could put it. There was a voice actor named Rob Paulson. Pinky from Pinky and the Brain. He would say, laughter is the best medicine, and the best thing is the refills are free and you can't OD. And it's just, the arts are so important. One, it tells our history. They'll look back on our culture today 200-300 years later and probably think we're batshit crazy, but it will the superheroes of today will become the mythology of tomorrow. Just like how the Greek mythology, there were stories of Hercules and Odysseus and all these amazing characters that we see as mythology. Those were the stories that the Greeks told around the fire. Okay. Superman, Batman will be that way a couple of 100 years from now. And the only problem is I don't see us as a culture, not as individuals, but as a culture, seeing us creating anything worthy of Hercules and of Homer and the Odyssey and the Iliad, these great epics. We're not creating anything worthy of to be in the same realm as those, and it breaks my heart sometimes.
Yeah, and that's something very important to remember, is that we need to remember that artistry and whatnot, it comes from a creative spirit. It comes from the human soul. And without that, you have nothing. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. It's a cheap facsimile that can be printed off 100 times with minimal effort by a computer program. As if you remove that, what do you have? It's just another mass manufactured product. Whereas with something that somebody has an idea and they let it mature and they work on it and they actually give it their time and their effort and their patience, it becomes a part of them.
Yes.
And that part of themselves transcends the work.
It's like, I have been working on a novel for probably 10, 15 years. And
oh, you too, huh?
Yeah. My main character is who I wish I could be. He's brave, he's brash, he's spontaneous. But we have so many like anonymous keyboard warriors out there who would just tear you down and like, oh shit, this makes you think this isn't good enough. And I think that's why I think the internet and social media is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother topic for another thing.
Yeah, that is a rabbit hole and a half. I was like, we're just shy of 3 hours. Good Lord.
Yeah, so let's wrap this up, man.
Yeah.
This was fun, like always.
This is good.
I love talking to you because you share the same passions as me, but it's such a different point of view. Because it's like Odysseus said in the Odyssey when the suitors asked him what their crime was. He said, "You stole you're guilty of trying to steal my world." Each one of us is a world in ourselves, and that's what I think people need to remember. That our worlds are interconnected in such a way, especially now with, like I said, the good side of social media, in a way that it's so easy to hate, and we need to choose good, and it's going to sound sappy when I say this, we need to choose love.
Yeah, we really do. We need to prioritize the individual over the collective.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we're following the primrose path down the way to collectivism, whether we want to or not.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think that's a lot to do with technology, a lot to do with social media and that kind of thing. Now, again, with anything, it can be a useful tool, but it can also be used as a weapon in the wrong hands. So
yeah, that's what I think we really need to slow down. I mean, I think I read every year the sum of human knowledge doubles every year, and it's been doing so for 10, 15 years. And so
we have the entire collective breadth of human knowledge of existence on this device that we carry around.
And we're
everything,
so stupid.
And we're so dumb.
Do you realize, I've heard this said, one of my best friend's grandfather worked on the Apollo missions. He helped build the lunar lander.
Cool.
He told me one time that the computing power in a musical greeting card is more powerful than what they had to send us to the moon.
Yeah.
We roboting? Okay.
Your mic dropped out for a second, but then it popped back. So
okay, we're good. Yeah, you kind of froze for a second on my end.
Okay.
So it's probably my computer's probably telling me, "Get off! You're killing me."
Oh my god, dude!
So before we go, tell me what you got planned.
So right now,
pour yourself out.
Yeah. So guys, anyway, as I said, I'm KaiserPineapple. I do movie and entertainment news. I try to put out at least a few videos a week. I'm trying to get back to doing at least 5 videos a week. Unfortunately, there's not been as much news as we thought. I mean, we're supposed to be in the summer movie season, and boy, it's almost as if there was a big Hollywood strike that caused a major drought last year. Huh, yes. Funny about that. But anyway, there's always still news to report. I report on that, and come on over to my channel. I give you the breakdown. I will sit there and I will look at the situations, and I will go ahead and get down to the bare brass nuts and bolts. I'll get down to the to the numbers, but I'll also tell you where the culture is headed, where the culture is beating, because as the late great Andrew Breitbart once said, politics is downstream from culture. If you know where the culture is, you know where the politics is headed, and if you can get ahead of it, then you have a chance to fix things before they happen.
Yes.
So, come on over, check out my channel, and subscribe if you want to. But also subscribe to this guy over here because he's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yes, like I'm trying to get about three videos a week right now. Life has gotten crazy.
Oh, I know, man.
For a lot of people. So check me out. I do try to do 3 live streams a week. Sometimes it'll just be me. Sometimes it'll be guests like Kaiser and others. But like I said, we need art. We need to choose love. So I'm like I always end my live stream. Thank you again, Kaiser, for coming. I love this. I love talking with people. I love learning other people's points of view.
We got to deep dive on this one. This was a blast.
Oh, it started so simple, and we just went down the rabbit hole. That's what I love about talking with people, because we get just so crazy. But remember, like I always say, I'm the nerd of the Outpost. Find your passion and nerd out about it. I'm gone.
Lost in space, I found my police. In this outpost of solitude, my way. Binary code run through my veins. If every beat and beat, I feel no pain. Signing off, it's time to go. Goodbye, my nerdy friends, see you later. I know through the stars we've shared this ride, but now it's time to say goodbye, farewell with pride.